This meeting is being recorded.
Go ahead, Lisa. Take it away with what you're about to tell the whole world here.
So, even after ex parte Milligan, we've had a problem with municipal courts, mayor courts,
Mm-hmm.
and either one, they didn't get the memo, or two, they're ignoring the memo.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a man that it's unfortunately was a supposedly an ASN, um, a very unfortunate situation. His wife was suffering from anxiety and depression, was put on medication, and um, they were having a drink or two, or I don't know, maybe five, I don't know. But the side effect of the medication was that that it gave um, some people thoughts of suicide. Combined
Oh,
with
right.
alcohol, she attempted suicide. She tried to jump out of a second-story window, and her husband stopped her. And as she was trying to go out the window, she bumped her head, cut her, scraped her head.
Oh my
And
gosh.
when there was blood on her hand, she freaked out, grabbed her phone, went in a closet. She wasn't really all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Called the police. And when the police came, they immediately arrested him for assault. No questions asked, no anything else. Went to jail, spent 2 days in jail, and then the magistrate he made him bond out, cost him like that because he said something about being um, an American state national. The prosecutor made the statement, "Oh, he's one of those," and the judge made the bond $100,000 instead of the usual, like $5,000 bond. Um, and
Oh.
he had to pay $10,000 to it through the court. So we got busy and he went back to court, and that same judge threw him in for contempt of court because he would not cross the bar, had him drug across the bar, put in jail for 2 days. Um, he bonded back out. And so what we ended up in our court taking and I petitioned um, the claimant petitioned our ASN petitioned our court justice to write a removal order to get it removed to our court, to our jurisdiction. And then we went into action with the removal order, and we also sent copies of our ex parte Milligan, the man's paperwork, um, to the court, to the sheriffs who are well aware that we're of our jurisdiction. We've already noticed them. We sent it to their risk management department. We sent it all over the place. And over
Okay.
the weekend, I had a good thought, and I decided to write a letter to the Solicitor General of Ohio. Okay.
Okay.
Solicitor General, as Anna has instructed, on the United States is the only one that actually has to know the law, and that is the same on every state. Okay. He's the only one that has to absolutely know the law. Our Solicitor General happens to be a graduate of Hillsdale College.
Oh, you would think he would be friendly.
And then he was trained in University of Chicago. I looked him up. University of Chicago Law School. Um, so I wrote a 3-page letter
Mm-hmm.
describing the trespass, the things, the court, giving contact numbers, enforcing our ex parte Milligan, as well as making sure he knows that we have filled our vacated public offices. We are official. We've been published. And our man went back to court, and of course the judge left him to last, tried to get him to join her, and when he said he was innocent, because I told him, I said, say nothing more than you are innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Stand on innocent. You are a living man. You are innocent. The judge started to come unglued, and the judge says, well, I'm going to enter a plea for not guilty. And our guy had instructed him to say, our judge, I can't believe it. Are you practicing law from the bench?
Mm-hmm.
Of which the judge screamed into the microphone, yes, I am practicing law from the bench. And he said,
Wow.
I want to make sure that that is recorded and on record, court record. The judge has just stated he is practicing law from the bench. That's called barratry.
Yep.
Okay. And the judge said, just a minute. And he signed something and he goes, we'll have a continuance on this case, which means I fully expect the case to be dismissed in the next 2 weeks. It just gave him 20 days to get the paperwork together and get it out the door. So I'm saying that it was a good day. I'm going to say that I believe it's a great big win. We have noticed the Solicitor General now. By morning, he'll have the third notice. And we fully expect that we're going to start they're going to start to see the teeth. So,
Awesome.
So this, we feel it's a huge win for Ohio, for all Ohioans. And hopefully that's going to be something that will be of newsworthy note across the country. So do your ex parte Milligan right. Get your vacated public offices filled. Do your ex parte Milligan. It means an awful lot. So that's our win for the day.
Wow. That's like a harrowing story. It kept me on the edge of my seat this whole time.
It was a lot of work.
Wait, so in the meantime, I'm left with two burning questions. The first one being, so where is the man right now? Is he out?
Home.
He's home. Okay, so that's number one. And then number two, is the wife defending and like not pressing charges?
Yes,
is she standing up for him? Okay, good.
In the original basically pretrial hearing, she had sent in her testimony to both the victim advocate and to the court clerk. The judge claims he never got it. The prosecutor tried to change her testimony, and she stuck to, I am not a victim. This was, and she also had submitted doctor's reports about the whole incident, where she had seen both her physician and her psychiatrist who she was in care of. And the prosecutor never allowed the evidence to be in the court. So there was obstruction going on as well by the prosecutor. So one of the people that we did manage to notice in all of this was the risk management department of both the county and the city of which they're in. I'm sure there was a pucker factor there getting that. So we laid it on pretty thick and pretty strong, and we sent them we copied the Supreme Court because they didn't do their job. We copied, we did a whole bunch of things. So, if this gets moved to our court, that means they recognize our jurisdiction. If it gets dismissed, they still recognize our jurisdiction. And then we're going to go back after them individually for the crimes that they've done. So try to get all of his bond money and then some back. So this was done right. Like I said, it's been a lot of work. It was an effort by an entire team of our litigation team. And we expected to have a successful outcome. So
fantastic. Well, I know we're all going to be excited to hear, how it goes and hear the outcome. And I love that you're doing all of the responsible stuff, not only with the notices, but also keeping track of everything, you know, and noticing, observing and documenting all the things that the magistrate is doing wrong. That's great. So way to go.
Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, I saw that Anna hopped in, but I don't see Anna on the video just yet. Can you hear us, Anna? Are you there?
This is Shannon. She'll be here in a minute.
Super. Okay, thanks a lot, Shannon. We do have a couple of hands up, but before we go to hands, I just want to ask, is there anybody on the call tonight that would like to open us up in a prayer?
Michelle, before we do the prayer, this is Michael on Ohio. May I real quick?
Sure, go ahead, Michael.
Lisa, in her humility, forgot to mention the wonderfully crafted letter that she sent out to our Solicitor General on Ohio. And I just want to thank her for that and point that out. Every little bit helps, and she did a great work on that. So I yield. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Kudos to you, Lisa. Good work. I know you're humble. So, and that's a beautiful thing too. So thank you.
I'll say the prayer for you, Michelle.
Awesome. Please go ahead, Susan.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name, so be it.
So be it. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
All right. Do we have a volunteer that would like to do the Bivens decision?
I can do the
I'll volunteer for that if nobody
go
else
ahead.
is.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Super. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead.
This is the Bivens decision. Yeah, thank you. This is the Bivens decision from Bivens versus 6 Unknown Agents, 403 US 388 from 1971. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who's being paid or coerced to be here, must fully disclose their presence and purpose now, or leave these premises or this conference call. If they subsequently show up as federal witnesses, they are discredited for failure to disclose. Are you now, or have you ever received money or personal support of any kind from the intelligence community? Is a response to the Bivens decision for the first time? Second time? Third time? Hearing none, this meeting shall now proceed. I yield. Thank you.
Whoops, I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry, you guys. While we're waiting for Anna, we have a couple of hands up. Now, Karen, last week you raised your hand up right away so that you could be the first to ask Anna a question. Is that why your hand is up right now?
Remember, that's because sometimes I'm too late when I come in and I don't get a chance. So yes, that's exactly right. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll keep your hand up there in first position. Anna is on the call with us, everybody. Welcome, Anna.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. What's new? How are you?
If I look like I have been in a washing machine on spin cycle, I have been. It's been that way for the entire past week. You can tell by all of the international news that's coming out that I've had to bear down and spend extra hours working on the situation with the Treasury, with Trump, with the military, all of that has caused extra work for everybody in the Federation, and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of extra strain and a lot of extra hours. So, not that we had that many extra hours to begin with. It's required a couple of all-nighters from me and certainly from Shannon, and we're feeling the loss of some of our elderly members, either because of illness or because they had to travel, or so been short-staffed and overwhelmed, but we are here, and so far we're holding our own. You all need to know just how serious this international situation is and how complex it is. The United States corporation that went bankrupt, that was the service arm of the municipal government, had many, many, many franchises, right? The upsets that we're seeing with Doge, they have to go through and conduct these audits of all of the federal departments that were part of the municipal government. They have to conduct audits of all of the municipal agencies. And that, of course, is hundreds of agencies alone, okay? And the number of federal departments isn't far behind. They have hundreds too. So you're looking at an absolutely mammoth physical accounting going on here. And at the same time this fiscal accounting is going on, they're having to make decisions about which employees and which functions they can and will maintain versus things that either whether they want to or whether they don't want to, they can't afford. Because remember, whatever the USA hires, they become responsible for. So they have to keep their budget and their purposes, their contractual obligations firmly in view when they're looking at these different municipal agencies and deconstructing them. So it's basically a bankruptcy liquidation / merger process going on here, because they will merge some of the current municipal employees and functions. They will merge into the USA Inc. Okay. So it's not just a straight across the board liquidation. If it was, we would be seeing a process where the department gets audited and then it gets axed. It gets audited and then it gets axed. It gets audited, then it gets axed. That's the way a straight liquidation works. But as you can see, they are not taking that approach. They audit and then they deconstruct, and they reduce the number of employees and functions, but they incorporate those functions into the USA structure. Okay, so anyway, it's a very complex, very time-consuming action that they've got going, and they themselves indicated that even with the computerized systems, trackers, and all the tech that Elon Musk can bring to bear, that it would take them at least a year and a half to complete. So they're looking at it as a year and a half project. It may take 2 years. Nobody really knows until they go through the process. But anyway, it's likely that at least a significant portion of Trump's term in office will be taken up with settling the municipal bankruptcy. And there will be a lot of money saved, but there will also be a lot of employees on the street. So, as I've said from the beginning, we're looking at between half and 2/3 of what we know as the federal government being gone. Just poof, no eyebrows sort of thing, where suddenly, there's no longer a department of, or there's no longer this particular agency. There's no environmental protection agency, or what it is completely scaled down. So you'll be seeing some real blood in the streets and a lot of crying and whining about all these employees being let go. But there's really no help for it, because remember, the USA Incorporated just itself is in the throes of settling out a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, a reorganization bankruptcy. So basically the only way that they have to really claw their way out of their own reorganization is to latch on to our assets again, and try to brave it out so that we don't get our assets back out of the mess. And so it's my job to bring forward our claims and to make sure that that doesn't happen, which is a full-time job in itself, quite apart from having to, bring up the unhappy fact that the United States Corporation also had many, 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 many different franchises worldwide. Like the UK Incorporated is a franchise of the bankrupt United States Corp. Germany, in all caps, is a bankrupt United States Corp. France, in all caps, is a bankrupt municipal United States Corporation franchise. And all of that has to be audited too. So when you think about it, you can better understand why all these quote unquote European leaders are just absolutely in a state of desperation, trying to figure out a way to absorb the cuts and keep their own economies and their own governments solvent enough to limp along and make it through. And they are indeed, they're at a point where they believe, whether they're right or wrong, that the only way that they can remain solvent is by starting World War III. See, they're looking to benefit themselves and make profit from war profiteering, because that's the only way they've been able to dig themselves out with World War I and World War II. People don't realize it, but this was all about economics and banking also. So this has been their way of digging out from under the bankruptcy and out of insolvency, is to start wars. Now, obviously, this is not a good thing for the human race. And obviously, this should not be going on. But that is nonetheless what the operators of these bankrupt European franchises are trying to do in order to muddle through all the disruption and the auditing and everything else that, the loss of employment, everything that will go on there too. It's hitting us first, but it's going to hit those franchises in other countries also.
Now, when the dust settles and the cleanup, of the municipal government is completed, or the subcontractor, is it going to be made apparent that now they've joined forces and they're under the British territorial system? I mean, how is that going to affect? I mean, this might not even be well known yet. So I'm just wondering, is it going to be evident that there's now only one federal subcontractor sort of having this umbrella of whatever agencies are left over by the municipal, whatever they decide to keep?
So far, they haven't been very forthcoming about these quote unquote private details. That, you don't see Trump saying, hey guys, I'm settling a bankruptcy, give me a break, right? He should say that, but instead he's trying to make political points and letting people think that he's choosing to do this just because he's such an all-around, upright guy. And what he should do is just admit that it's all part of the bankruptcy settlement and that he has no choice in the matter, and that it's causing all these disruptions and chaos and problems and layoffs. I think people would be more understanding if he just was upright and out front, and there it is. It's certainly what I would do if I were in his position, because then everybody would understand what was going on. And, if I didn't make any political hay on it, it wouldn't matter, because people would still be grateful and happy that it was getting done.
Although they would probably freak out at the idea that the government could be going bankrupt in the first place. I think that alone would probably be a massive wake-up call for a lot of people. They would be like, wait, what do you mean bankrupt? How could that possibly be? We're the greatest superpower in the world, right? So that would be a huge shock to, Main Street, basically, right?
Well, they would have to understand that it's a corporation that's going bankrupt. They'd have to understand that the country doesn't go bankrupt, isn't bankrupt, and can't be bankrupt by definition. I was asked to write an article, and I will certainly try to get to it, explaining why it is that a corporation cannot be the actual government.
Great. That would be a very helpful article. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the only kind of entity that can go bankrupt is by definition a corporation. And on top of that, it has to be a public corporation. And what do I mean by that? It means that the public owns that corporation. So if the corporation goes bankrupt, you get to pay its debts off. And so they're trying to set this up so that we get stuck paying the debts for the United States corporation. And the only exception to that is if the United States corporation acted in bad faith, and we demand that the corporate veil be stripped. Well, if they strip the corporate veil, then the individual franchise corporations that they set up under our names will also be bankrupted in the process. So it's kind of a dual-ended disaster. It's a trifecta of damned if you do and damned if you don't. My preference is to strip the corporate veil and hand the responsibility to the perpetrators of the scheme. And that means that the Pope and the British King would both get a gigantic bill for their disservice. So anyway, these are things that we struggle with here every day in terms of, what do you have to do? Who do you have to contact? Where do you post notice of it? How do you do this to ensure that no matter what happens, the American people get the best deal out of it that's possible? We may not be able to manage 100%, but 90% is a lot better than none. And what they had planned to do was to leave us with none. So both those corporations and the principals in back of them have acted with immense bad faith over a long period of time, and they've gotten away with it, so they think that they can get away with it again. And as time goes on, they're very slowly but surely coming to the conclusion that no, they can't just get away with skating and, pretending that we are British territorial subjects. It's just not going to wash. too many people know the facts now, and more people are learning on a daily basis, and more people are waking up simply because all the activity in the external world, all of the talk about Doge, all the talk about the situation in Gaza, all the talk about what's going on in Ukraine. These are huge public interest topics that are engaging the people on a scale that has been, well, it hasn't been seen in many years. Everyone's concerned that the European, I will say it, European desperation and desire to start World War III so they can dig themselves out of their economic hole is pathetic, but it's also very dangerous. The possibility that we would wind up on the other side, that we would be fighting against Europe, is a possibility. The way these things work out sometimes is very, it's a crapshoot. You're walking into, you don't know what to expect. Everybody's got hold cards. Everybody's got, secret fears. Everybody is, scrambling around. And let me also say that the best interest of these corporations that are running Germany and France and all these other countries are not necessarily aligned with what's good for the people. So, that too is just thrown up in the air. Poland has a very good government. They have a very determined leader who is very practical. And so they're lucky that he is not being swayed, and he's not allowing Poland to be just conscripted into the European effort. My recommendation to President Trump is to bankrupt all of those franchises that take those bankrupt municipal corporations and just begin the gutting process now. And that'll give them something more to think about than playing war in Ukraine. Now, I'm not against the Europeans forming their own national governments again. Obviously, that is to be applauded, desired, encouraged, pushed as fast as possible, so that the people there can gain control of these corporate governments and stop all of this self-interest and bully boy tactic stuff and get down to living again. It's just as important for France to form up its national government as it is for Germany to finally resuscitate its national government. But I'm talking about the corporations that have usurped upon these different national governments and the kinds of reckless, self-interested, for-profit racketeering and warmongering that these corporations indulge in. And so when I'm saying, for example, Germany or France, I'm talking about the corporations. I'm not talking about the nations. And the national governments are what need to be brought forward. So the people themselves have got to bring their national governments forward and use those national governments.
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, Anna. We had a hot mic over there. I got it.
So anyway, all of this warmongering stuff is very concerning. It's something that, the Federation, we don't have many worries about Mr. Trump going off in the wrong direction on that. But we certainly are concerned with the kinds of duplicitous, backdoor, nasty, usual skullduggery by the British. And the British have been very sneaky. They've acted in bad faith once again. They signed a 100-year friendship pact with Ukraine, and they simply took it for granted that we would provide the security agreement underlying that agreement with Ukraine for them, so that they would gain control of all the rare earth minerals, and it would be our blood and our money and our armed forces that would be fighting with the Ukrainians and preserving the borders of Ukraine for them. So once again, the Brits were out to use us, and Joe Biden went ahead and signed this $500 billion, basically a grant to Ukraine. And so now Donald Trump is coming in and canceling that. You know, they'd already managed to siphon away, 3/5 of it. And they are only able to account for 1/5 of it. But at least Trump was able to cancel on 200 billion of it. So then there's basically 230 billion of it that's lost, missing. We don't know what happened to it. Yeah. So just immense amounts of graft, immense amounts of embezzlement, immense amounts of siphoning off of these NGOs. And it's been going on for a long time. It's been bleeding us dry, on top of which we've been underwriting and guaranteeing all these other countries. And basically, franchises have been providing them with both defense services and civil service for free, or almost free. And this is all a holdover from World War II, when these corporations got set up and began providing the governmental services in lieu of the national governments being restored. So basically, the British began operating in this unlawful and undisclosed manner, and then they brought it to the United States and the Commonwealth, and then in World War II, they foisted it off on 17 European nations that had been occupied by the Allies. So, and everywhere they've gone, Japan, Libya, Iraq, and now they have their sights fixed on not only Ukraine, but Iran. And if they can possibly hoist it off on us, they want us to go to war with Russia for them too. At which point we say, no, sorry.
No, you've said many times that we've been allies with them all along, so.
You say so.
Or Honda Whisper, an inverter as well.
Hi, Shannon.
Good morning.
Are you interrupting Anna, Shannon?
We've got an interruption.
Oh, I can just get on my phone and shut it down.
No, please don't do that.
No, we have an emergency here. One of our big generators went down last night.
Oh.
So we have to buy a new generator, and it's been a real pain in the butt, both financially and in terms of manpower having to be switched on to fixing that problem and finding a new generator and all of it. So that's what he's taking care of right now. Begging posture.
Right. Yeah. I think everybody heard that. Okay.
Yes, we're having a hard time. But anyway, if I were Donald Trump, I would be changing the focus somewhat from the domestic front to beginning the auditing process on all those municipal corporations in Europe, and giving them something to think about. I think that Trump has found some worthy allies in terms of the economic situation in India and Japan. The real enemy here of all people is Britain. And that's very regrettable because, you know, we all like the British people, but their government is so infinitely perfidious and dishonest, deceitful, unstable, disloyal, self-interested, uncaring, and they're that way to their own people too. I mean, nobody on the planet has been as devastated and has suffered the kind of depopulation from war that the British Isles have. If you stop and think about it, they lost an entire generation in the First World War, and we're already in a very steep population decline when barely 20 years later, the Second World War began. And then another generation was decimated. And during the same time, the populations were suffering from famine, from perpetual poverty, and they were still expected to give the proverbial stiff upper lip and go out there and give their all for what? Great Britain and the British Crown, for the Queen, for the King, for the money, 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 money. And so the Brits have suffered their government as much or worse than anybody else. So let's be sure and, you know, make a distinction in our minds between the British people who have been defrauded for 300 years and the rotten, wretched, criminal government that they've had to endure and which has foisted its tentacles onto the rest of the world.
Yeah, colonizing all over the world, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
if they couldn't colonize directly, you know, it became such a political hot potato. Everybody put thumbs down on colonialism. But did the British stop? No, they simply changed venues. They changed jurisdictions. And so instead of the colonial empire, then they switched over and changed, you know, unlawfully converted everything into a different jurisdiction, and then proceeded to create corporate feudalism. But it was feudalism just the same. Right. And then, you know, instead of there being an actual monarch who was liable for all of this, they foisted it all off onto a corporation which couldn't be held accountable. So they thought, oh, well, you know, this is a good thing. And what's even worse, in my opinion, is that not only have they pulled all of these con games and stings and constructive frauds and weaponization of the justice system and all these other evils all these years, but now they're trying to escape through the back door by doing another jurisdictional change and entering in the jurisdiction of the air. So they're trying to change their offices and change their personas and enter a different jurisdiction and exonerate themselves for all responsibility and all debt that they have created in the jurisdiction of the sea. They're trying to enter the jurisdiction of the air and wash their hands and wash their debts away by doing so. And this becomes more obvious when you see that the Pope has taken on a new title as the Patriarch of the West and has set up a new deal, if you will, and a new détente with the Eastern Orthodox Church, obviously, and that King Charles III has been crowned as an emperor in imperial jurisdiction, which again is air jurisdiction. Now, nobody seems to know whether the Pope is dying or dead or recovering. Nobody seems to know. There's a whole lot of talk. There are a lot of different cardinals being run through the paces to see who might be a new Pope. There are at least a couple major contenders. I don't think either one of them are fully aware of what they're stepping into if they inherit that office, or if they continue to try to act as popes, you know. There's also a big shakeup in England. King Charles has said that he is resigning. I don't know how many people have heard that yet, but he actually said, "I resign." And so there's been a huge reshuffling and chaos and concern, and what does this mean? Is he set on this course that he's going to resign? Can he retract that? Does this mean that his son William automatically then becomes king, and we're facing another whole coronation event and big brouhaha in England?
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, yes. So both of those offices are, like shoes thrown up in the air.
Well, it begs the question too, in regards to Space Force, and not only Space Force, but also, Elon did all the stuff with the satellite system, and sort of, I don't want to say weaponizing, but with the technology that they have now up in the sky, it's like a giant spider web of connectivity.
Right.
And, they're taking control over a physical jurisdiction in this way. And I'm wondering if it has anything to do with what you're talking about with the Pope and the king, former king.
The sky, the air.
Yep.
Space Force is their jurisdiction.
But do you think that they're working together on that? I mean, in other words, do you think that the U.S. military under this Space Force, are they working with the Pope and quote, Emperor Charles?
Well, you have to understand about the air jurisdiction. The air jurisdiction, think of the air, the atmosphere blanketing the whole globe, right? So the air is everywhere. It's over the land. It's over the sea. It's completely global. Okay.
Right.
So there is an air to land connection and an air to sea connection. Okay. Now, something that came up here, a lot of people still confused about how the treaties that ended the Revolutionary War were then implemented by the constitutions. Okay. And they're confused about what are called treaties series. All right. So if it is something to do with the land and land jurisdiction, which is international, right? Then the treaty series is Treaty of Versailles. If it's a sea jurisdiction treaty, it's a Treaty of Paris. If it's a maritime jurisdiction treaty, it's a Treaty of Westminster. And if it's a land jurisdiction to air treaty, it's a Treaty of Ghent, G-H-E-N-T, Ghent being a city in Belgium. So anyway, you've got these different series of treaties that are used as a means of organizing the different jurisdictions and treaties within those jurisdictions. So land is Treaty of Versailles, sea is Treaty of Paris. The air to sea is Treaty of Westminster, and the air to land is Treaty of Ghent. Okay, but this then shows you that the air jurisdiction has these two subsets. There's air jurisdiction at sea and air jurisdiction on the land. And you have to account for both, right? So you have a situation, for example, Space Force, you have land jurisdiction that connects to that, right? But you also have sea jurisdiction that connects to that. And since we already have a situation where, remember, the British territorial government got its foot in the door with us and got a sea jurisdiction treaty, the Treaty of Paris 1783, which left them with all of their investments here intact and gave them a contract to provide services on the high seas and navigable inland waterways, which
that's 1789 Constitution, right?
Yes, that the 1789 Constitution was the implementation of the 1783 Treaty of Paris between our government and the British government. So you see there's a treaty first, and then there's the Constitution. There's the treaty, and then there's the implementation of the treaty.
Thank you for putting that, connecting that information. That's so helpful. Okay, keep going. Sorry, Anna.
It all does make sense. It's all logical.
Yeah.
But you have to sort of sort it out in your own mind, and you have to have someone kind of taking you by the shoulder and saying, oh, see how that works? Because each of these treaties has its implementations, and they often involve different players. You know, our admiralty is our admiralty. The British Admiralty is the British Admiralty. And yet, because we have an agreement, a contract with them, implemented by the Constitution of 1789, which is their contract, they continue to have a disproportionate influence on the U.S. Navy.
Right.
And they will also have an influence on Space Force because of the maritime jurisdiction, the sea to air jurisdiction. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have our own jurisdiction, which is land to air. We do. And that is the true jurisdiction of commerce. So we also have our, you know, our version of commerce. See, they call theirs maritime commerce, and ours is just plain old commerce. Okay, but anyway, those are both the sort of subset jurisdictions that connect the sea to the air and the land to the air. And I want everybody to understand this stuff so that I'm not the only one conversant, okay? I want everybody to get this.
Well, it's important too, what you said, to help us understand how the treaties came before the contracts, the employment contracts.
Yeah.
So that's hugely important. And for people on the call tonight that are coordinators for state, you know, your state coordinators, the state, of course, is in international jurisdiction. So it's important for us when we have these little missing pieces, like for me, that was a missing piece. I didn't realize that the Constitution was as a result, you know, the different constitutions were as a result of these treaties. Right. That was a missing piece for me. So it's like, you know, every time you teach us, more and more gets filled in, but it makes sense now because the constitutions didn't come out of thin air. They came as a result of these treaties.
Right.
This is really important. Yeah.
There were quid pro quos that were established in the treaties that had to be implemented in they had to be implemented in fact. And so the constitutions, which are service contracts, from our perspective, we were hiring vendors to provide us with these certain essential government services, is how Article 4 puts it.
Yep.
So we were hiring. And these treaties dictated, you know, what kind of little plums of vendor gold was going to be spent on, you know, a reciprocity with the British and a reciprocity with the Pope. And so that's why we wound up with an American federal subcontractor and a British territorial subcontractor and an Holy Roman Empire subcontractor.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to look at it, you've got the Treaty of Versailles, and you've got the American subcontractor that was known as the Federal Republic, that was operated by our Confederation of 1781, that was doing business as the States of America, upper lower case. Okay, so there's that whole progression. Then you have the Treaty of Paris, 1783, and the Constitution of the United States of America, meaning the British territorial version. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Take your time. That's fine.
But, and finally, you have the Air Jurisdiction Treaty. So you've got both the Treaties of Westminster and the Treaty of Ghent to cover both those eventualities in air jurisdiction, leading to the Constitution of the United States.
That's the 1790.
The 1790.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, you know, in order to track back to see the treaties, you have to be aware of the Treaty of Westminster is maritime. That's the sea to air. And then Treaty of Ghent is the land to air treaty. You have to have both of those in order to make sense of what went on in the implementation via the Constitution of the United States. Anyway, I wanted to make people aware of that. You know, oftentimes people get part of it and they are trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. I can't count how many times people have brought forward the Treaty of Paris, 1783. And, you know, they see in there that the king is still the prince of the United States of America. And they immediately read those words and they think that, well, nothing happened. The Brits, you know, maintained their clause and he was the prince of our United States of America, because they're unaware that there are two. And that one is a corporation and one is unincorporated. You know, one is a British Crown Corporation franchise and one is a country in international jurisdiction. You know, so there are things like that that people need to know so that it makes sense. Otherwise, you've got all these bizarre theories. I'm sure that people have seen these people that claim that Britain won the war of independence and blah, 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 based on their understanding of the Treaty of Paris. But they don't know that Treaty of Paris is a sea jurisdiction treaty. You know, they don't have the connects.
Yeah. Well, you connected that for, you know, there might be people on the call that already figured that out, but you really connected something tonight, Anna, bringing the two, you know, not, you know, there's more than two, but bringing the treaties and explaining how that led to the contracts,
right?
The constitutions, you know. So no, this is an up leveling for us for sure.
Another thing for people to know is that contracts overstand virtually everything else until you get into high-level ecclesiastical law. So their obligation to the constitutions is their highest level of obligation within the land-sea relationship. You know, we oftentimes are talking about agreements, but if it's an agreement, the contract is more binding. So if they make an agreement among themselves, as they do when they legislate codes and all that, codes, statutes, regulations, ordinances, mandates, public policies, all that stuff that they legislate, that's at a lower level than the Constitution, which is an international contract.
Right.
So that's why the Constitution overstands all this other legislated stuff. And, that's all across the board. Contracts always overstand all legislation.
Well, yeah, and the fact that a lot of the legislation that goes through these statutes and codes and rules and regulations and policies and procedures and all of it, so much of what we see is actually unconstitutional, but there haven't been appropriately educated people to in their proper capacity to enforce the contracts.
Right.
But as we're learning now, who would be accountable for having the enforcement power to communicate with which agencies and which departments and which, employees. Right. I forget the name of that one article, but you broke it down for us, like when it's appropriate to bring in the Federation on matters that relate to international issues, and or when it's appropriate for a coordinator to get involved, and bridge the gap. So I'll have to look up, someone might even have probably Susan James, who is like the most awesome archivist, aside from you, Anna. There's that great article. I've got it on my class, but I broke it up into chunks for people to know who to correspond with when.
Yeah, well, we're still having problems with that. We've had a problem in North Carolina, and it's not by any means I'm kind of putting them in the spotlight, whether they want to be or not, because they've been a real sore thumb. But it's not unique to North Carolina, where they mistake the role of the Federation. And I think that there's a tendency for those who are deeply indoctrinated into the corporatist model to think of us as like the higher authority and the school marm, that's in charge of the schoolyard. And so, when things don't go well within their assembly and they can't resolve their own internal problems, they want us to come in and moderate it for them. But that's not our job. Our job is to support and guide and protect you while you're assembling. We're here to answer questions that you have while you're assembling your state. But all of those things, all the petty bickering, all the, disagreements over this, that, or the other thing, sure, the Confederation can help by providing information so that you get the correct slant on something. Oftentimes we can do that, but you still have to work through all those interpersonal relationships that can go sideways. You have to deal with gossip campaigns. You have to deal with loose cannon members that make reckless accusations and claims. You have to learn how to create an atmosphere and culture.
Got it, 5.
Oh, thank you.
I can't handle it.
Good night.
I meant to ask you that earlier, but come on, Bonnie, let's go. Bonnie, Bailey out. Let's go. Come on, Bonnie.
It's always something.
It ain't one thing, it's another.
That's you're a masterful multitasker. It's like you just pause for a moment and then come right back.
What fun is it for all the neurotypical people with only one thought in their head?
Right.
Yeah, no. There's a whole committee going on, like.
Yes, part of my brain is looking for looking for a new generator, and part of my brain is here with you. and part of it is with North Carolina, because, you know, they've had this long-standing schism in their operation there. And there have been many, many misunderstandings about the role of the Federation, the role of other federal officers like Continental Marshals and the PKTF, and misunderstanding about what is their responsibility. You know, when do they take accountability for what they are creating? And all the coordinators have to become aware of the fact that, hey, I'm a member of this assembly. I'm an American state national, just like, you know, all the other American state nationals who are here. And, you know, look at what we're creating. Is this the kind of culture that we want to create? Or are we just recreating all of the bickering and backstabbing and suspicion and, you know, influence peddling and social dystopia that we're exiting, that, you know, we say we want to exit it, and yet we bring it along with us by habit, by you know, keeping the same thoughts and assumptions and making the same mistakes over and over. And, you know, I get treated some, you know, and this is, I don't think it's my fault, because I certainly never volunteered for the position of school marm, you know, trying to keep the squabbling 5-year-olds from killing each other. But that things at that level need to be taken care of by the assemblies themselves. The grown-ups in the room need to stand strong against the squabblers and say, look, this isn't what we're here for. You know, and when the gossip starts, it's up to the grown-ups to say, nah, we're not here to gossip. You know, substantiate that, you know, put your name on the line and bring forward the evidence, or, you know, and all these other things that are sort of social learning and, you know, that require more conscious thought than many people are giving it. And the coordinators certainly have to give it conscious thought, because there's a deeply ingrained indoctrination that results from the programming that we've all gone through. And, you know, I briefly touched on this to invite everybody to think about how you're born into this family and instantly you get pegged as, you know, whatever groups that you belong to. You know, suddenly this little baby is a Christian, and they're white, and they're Episcopalian, and they're you know, upper crust or lower crust or whatever. They've got a social economic caste that they've plunked into. They don't have any of this, but the world around them forces all these identities on them. It gives them a name and a place and a socioeconomic bracket and, you know, everything. Boom, right away, you're a little baby and you've been burdened with all this. Then your family, your parents and your siblings, with all the best intentions in the world for the most part, continue to push you into this mold, into this identity. Then you get old enough for school, and guess what happens? Oh, well then, in addition to them, you've got the entire rest of the community telling you who you are and where you fit or where you don't fit and what your limitations are. And this goes on for years. You know, we spend 12 years in school, and then another 4 years in college, and then another 4 years in graduate school. By the time you're all done with that, you don't know who you are, and you've never been asked what you want. Okay? This is our common reality. You know, or you get out of high school and you go into the service, and that indoctrination is even more severe. Then you're told that you're worthless and you don't have any importance other than being a useful cog in a wheel. You know, you're just an E6 and this is your job. And, it's your duty, and damn it, you'd better be good at it, and you better be there, you know. And so then you get this other indoctrination that, you know, reduces your importance as an individual and, you know, emphasizes your duty to a team, okay? And then you go pop right out of any one of those, you know, first experiences as a young person. You're 25 years old, say. And then what happens? Well, for a lot of us, you go to work for what? A corporation.
Corporation.
And, you know, what the corporation has what? A very hierarchical and compartmentalized system. You know, you get plunked into a little hole in their grand organization. And once again, you're in a hierarchy. And unfortunately, when this all started out, our coordinators, who were all volunteers, stepped forward. And usually we only had one coordinator per state, right? And
Right.
so all the people coming in would see one person and they would say, oh, that's the CEO.
Right.
And they would dump all of their preconceptions, all of their prior experience, you know, oh, that's dad, that's mom, that's the CEO, you know. And so all of their prior indoctrination and programming and their experience in life pushes them to think that you're the CEO. You know, anyone who's doing anything that involves any kind of exercise of authority or anything like that becomes the CEO or the school marm, as I put it. And, you know, it's very tiring when you already have a full-time job facing off things like Gaza and the Ukraine and Doge and giant bankruptcies that are worldwide and, you know, currency instability and the changing of an entire banking system and so many other huge, huge things. And then you get, you know, you get these calls in the middle of the night. Oh, Jimmy doesn't like Sally and Joe is sleeping with Hermione and, you know, and it's just unbelievably frustrating for us at the federation level because we know why people are doing it. It's their indoctrination. It's their assumptions about authority. It's their entire life experience catching up to them. But then they dump it on us. And so last night, or night before last, I'm kind of losing my nights here too. North Carolina was going to send us a letter of censure and tell the Federation to keep the hell out of our business. And we don't have any confidence in, you know, Bill, Joe, and James or whatever, you know. They still haven't gotten it firmly in their heads that it's their assembly and they're responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that the coordinators are volunteers and they're not required to be a coordinator according to whatever their conceptualization of a coordinator is. I mean, I would say most of the states now have either got co-coordinators, or they're open to having co-coordinators because they know how much work that is involved, okay? And a coordinator can work in many different areas. I mean, you could have a coordinator in the Southeast and one in the Southwest and one in the Northeast and one in the Northwest. You'd have one in the middle, central. You know, if you had 5 coordinators and they were split up like that around your state, would you still have the same assumptions that there's just one coordinator and that they're the CEO? No.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't.
And so, you know, we've got 3 more people to stand up and function as coordinators in North Carolina. And for some reason, they think that this is, you know, an us or them situation. And it's not. It's the way it should always have been, that you have multiple coordinators and they work together and they separate out job responsibilities that they each undertake. But their primary work is to educate people, to get information from the Federation, to answer questions when they have them, to foster cooperation, to encourage people to, lend a hand and grab an oar, so to speak, and work on some particular aspect of building the state assembly, whether that's an interest in the General Assembly or it's an interest in a committee. But, to encourage people to start standing up and working to get things done. And all this squabbling about who's the coordinator and who's the team captain and, who gets to be a committee member. I mean, you don't have to have a committee chairman. You can just function as a committee. And if you have a committee chairman, you can have co-chairs. There are all these different ways in which you can work out the distribution of work and responsibility without this idea of an office that has a
like a
strict
title.
that has a strict little box in which it functions. You can be a coordinator, and frankly, you could be a coordinator and do a bang-up job educating and getting people signed in, so that their paperwork is done and they're on the record as members of your state population. And they might not never come to an actual General Assembly meeting. That doesn't mean they're not out there coordinating. It doesn't mean they're not bringing people in. It doesn't mean they're not educating themselves, their families, their friends. It doesn't mean that they don't have a right to go to the Federation and ask questions. They do. Once they stood up as a coordinator and taken some training and gotten vetted, there's no reason why these people can't communicate with the Federation and ask questions. You see, it's not this little enclosed group. It's not this little, cadre in the pyramid structure with the CEO at the top and everybody coming down. It's not that way. That's not, right. It's not our government. And so I just want to kind of remind all of the coordinators in training that resolving these kinds of bickerings and misunderstandings, it has to happen within your state. It has to happen within your assembly. That's why it's your assembly and not little franchises of the Federation, right? The beauty of this is that you do have your own turf. You have your own responsibility. You have your own organization. You get to define, whether you have a friendly, welcoming culture and everybody gets along and everybody works together and everybody helps each other. This is what we want. This is what we say we want, that we want a community-based government where everybody is working toward freedom and abundance and peace and we have all these wonderful things, freedom, we want security for our homes and our communities, we want things to be, we can do without all the drama, okay? All the stir and drong and fight. We can do without that. We can do without the gossip. We can do without the baseless complaints and suspicions and fears. We can leave all of that behind, but we have to make up our mind that that's what we want, and that's what our goal is. If we do that and we promote that atmosphere and that kind of kinship within each assembly, then the rest goes easy. If we're going to be friends and we're going to be united, even if we don't, I don't have to agree with everything that Joe next door thinks. Joe doesn't have to agree with me. We can still agree on the things that are most important. Do we want to restore the American government the way it's supposed to operate? or not? Do we want to have peace or not? Do we want to have security for our homes and our family or not? Do we want to be free of invasive taxes and coercive racketeering based on taxes or not? Do we understand the monetary system? Do we realize that we are the ones that actually have and represent all of the value that is? And understanding that, are we, do we want an abundant monetary system that works? Or do we want to have some out of control monstrosity that just does nothing but get purloined and distributed as if it were confetti? I mean, what do we want? Okay, and that's why I keep telling people, what do you want? What kind of world do you want to live in? You want to live in a world where you feel that you belong and where you feel safe? Well, if you do, you should know that it's your responsibility to provide that same security and space to others. Would you like somebody to be talking about you and making reckless accusations behind your back? No, you wouldn't. Okay, so when you grind it all down, folks, when it comes to building a strong assembly in your state and avoiding all the drama and all the other bad things that can happen, it begins with you and with your determination, what you want, and what does it take in terms of your own actions to get what you want. If you're going to foster a community involvement and a community of peace and security and friendliness and belonging, then you have to give away all of the baggage from your corporatist upbringing. You have to just get rid of it. The gossip, the social climbing, the keeping up with the Joneses, the flaunting of money, the pursuit of money, the chasing of tail, the untoward threat that you could pose to somebody else. You have to forswear anything like that. You have to build instead an entire culture that is based on mutual respect, trust, kindness, patience. Believe me, patience of Job, okay? And you just have to say no to suspicion, unfounded suspicions, paranoia, accusations. There are some people among us who just run off at the mouth, and whatever comes into their brain as their imagination. Oh, this could be happening. Oh, that could be happening. Oh, and did you hear that so-and-so told so-and-so that so-and-so said that? Oh, and then they go whining like wild horses, and they spread all this garbage all over the internet through social networking. And actually, social networking is not proving to be a help. It's proving to be a distraction. And when these gossip campaigns and these suspicion campaigns get going, they've been a real detriment. Some of you here remember Mattermost. Well, we had to shut Mattermost down because instead of networking in a constructive way, people were using it as a forum to disseminate false information and rumors and gossip and trade insults. And it was just absolutely, it was the ugliest thing I think I've ever seen in terms of a social network where all these people were fighting each other. And, some of the scars that endure to this day because of the irresponsible accusations that were made and the bad information that was shared through that network. We have to all take the pledge. And, everybody that comes in has to be taught a new way of interacting and thinking and assuming that what are the assumptions. You know, part of our role as coordinators is to promote good assumptions. You know, you don't always assume the worst. You don't always assume the least and worst of people. You have to have a certain amount of optimism, and you have to be patient. You know, one of the worst things that we ever went through was when I introduced the bank. I mean, I was totally unprepared. Here we have worked so hard, so diligently, and so many people have sacrificed to make a global banking system available to the American people that's theirs, that's there to serve them instead of take from them. I mean, I would think that would be the best, that would be the ultimate best news, and the single step, most important step toward providing security for Americans and American families and communities that I can think of. Because why are we going through so much misery? Why are our lives insecure? Taxation. We've got these goons coming in and tearing families and businesses apart over taxation. We've got farms being foreclosed for property taxes that the people don't even owe. You know, we've got people, millions of people paying mortgages they don't owe. We're being bilked and fleeced and coerced and racketeered against by our own employees. And what facilitates that? The corrupt banking system. So when I say, oh, well, you know, we have our own banking system, we chartered it, it includes both international trade and commerce, you know, this should have been an announcement that was greeted with great joy. I mean,
Right.
And instead, what did we get? Everybody making bad and wrong assumptions, assuming the worst. And then we got a few Rockefeller agents in here and a couple Rothschild agents, and they had themselves a field day making false accusations and promoting gossip campaigns, everything they could possibly do to destroy our confidence and destroy our reputation and destroy our efforts when they were just aborting. And I'll think, why were they doing that? Because they're on the other side, because they're profiting, because they're getting those billions of dollars that are just being flushed down the toilet every day, because they're part of the problem, because they're part of the evil. Okay? They're the ones that are swindling you. They're the ones that are telling you that you owe mortgages you don't owe and owe taxes you don't owe. And oh, by the way, you're a citizen. And all the other gunk and lies. Okay? And they're in there gossiping. Just, you know, spewing out these totally reckless, unsupported, unsubstantiated, suspicious, ugly rumors. And we let them do it. People stand around like dumb driven cattle and they listen to this and they get all upset and excited. Or they don't take the time to really understand what's going on. And then they're upset. As coordinators, one of the very worst things you're going to face is this kind of reckless, irresponsible, and often self-interested slander and gossip campaigns. And, you know, it's hard to nip it. You know, I myself have pled, and I do mean I have been as forthright as I am right here to you tonight and said, stop the gossip. Stop making reckless accusations. If you've got an actual reason to think something is wrong, substantiate it. You know, we need proof. We need evidence. Otherwise, keep your lips zipped.
Yeah, bring the receipts.
Yeah, exactly. Don't deal in the airy-fairy. Deal with the concrete. Deal with what's real.
Yeah.
And still, there are people out there that just can't get that. There are still people out there whose stock and trade is to yakety, 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 gossip, 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 gossip. And as coordinators, they're going to be your worst problem. And, you know, controlling the cancer of gossip is very difficult. We have, you know, there are lots of people that aren't Christian who are American. There are lots of people who don't necessarily come from a Bible-based religion. One of the three, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, are all Bible-based, basically, at the end, because they all include the Old Testament. One of the things that is taught in all three religions is that God forbids us to kill. Why is that? It's because we can't restore life. We're taking something that isn't ours to take. When we kill someone, we're actually stealing a gift that was given to them, not to us. And so that's why there's a prohibition against killing, okay? There's also a prohibition against lying, okay? They put it in terms of bearing false witness, okay? But that also includes a whole variety of different things. Omitting crucial information, purposely distorting information to give somebody the wrong impression. There are all sorts of things that fall under the realm of deceit, which are also forms of bearing false witness. And gossip, this kind of irresponsible gossip type activity, is also a form of lying. And if you are serious about the Holy Bible, you'll find that consistently throughout it, whether it's Old Testament or New Testament, what do you find? God hates liars, absolutely despises gossip. So if you are a person who has a spiritual component in your background at all, you should be aware of this, and you should turn away from omitting, deceiving, deliberately promoting false impressions, from lying, you know.
Yeah.
As I said, and as we said, James and I both, in writing the you know something is wrong when. What do you encounter on the very first pages?
Well, it shows first there was God, right? And God created everything. And then there was man. And then I'm trying to remember.
Okay,
Oh.
We've got this little disclaimer here, right?
Yep.
And it says, the truth is not relative. There's no relativism in nature. It either is or it isn't. The truth is absolute. Yeah, it is or it isn't. However, we are mammals. The best we can do is tell the truth to the best of our knowledge and ability. Okay? We don't always know in an absolute sense what's true or what isn't. But at least we can be aware that we don't know all the time. And we can do our best to grant the credibility of that fact. You know, we may be lying unaware. We may be telling somebody that something that we believe to be true that isn't. But at least we can be sure that we're not being sloppy, that we're not intentionally or just because it feels good playing shimmy-shally with the truth. You know, we got to stop that. It's kind of the defining factor between people of peace and goodwill and people of evil. You know, an allegiance to what's true as opposed to what's expedient or what makes us feel good or what makes us feel safe or what makes us look good, okay? The commitment to the truth is essential to success in the world that we're trying to build. So whether you're a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian or a Buddhist or anybody anywhere, it's always the same. The truth is crucial. So don't play fast and loose with the truth. Don't be sloppy with it. Don't think that it's okay to spread something that you aren't sure of. Okay, everybody? It's important. And I want all of our coordinators to be promoting that kind of culture, that kind of focus on truth and doing your best to tell the truth and know the truth and really, go that extra mile to ferret things out and think things through. Don't just recklessly start spreading something you heard from somebody and, go on and about, because you do more harm with that than almost anything I can think of.
Well, that's an important lesson for everybody, Anna. Thank you for reminding us, because, assemblies do struggle. I'm an eyewitness that assemblies can struggle with this gossip and getting lost in competition or lobbying side, creating sides and then lobbying and garnering support for a side. And I'm like, there are no sides.
Right.
There are no sides. There is just this.
Yeah, well, I have a little sign. It's got a big X, big red X over the word drama.
Nice.
I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to play roles. I'm not here to deal with a whole bunch of unnecessary trumped up controversy. No drama. Just keep focused on what's good, on what builds, what helps, and stay there. Stay in that groove, because that's how we all benefit. That's how we all gain the world that we want, where it's peaceful and secure and happy and communities are thriving and everybody has enough. This is what we really need to focus on, are those basics of, human caring and consideration. It all just comes down to two fundamental laws. My mother used to joke. She'd say, here's the government with 80 million statutes, codes, regulations, and things that they can't even possibly know, much less obey or enforce. Okay, here's the government. It's out there in the airy fairy world. Okay, then here's the government of men. And so God comes and he gives us 10 commandments, but we couldn't do that much. We just couldn't even figure out 10 of these things, right? And we couldn't obey them. So his son comes and says, okay, you guys have really messed up. You couldn't obey all 80 million rules, statutes, codes, and all that. Forget that. You're never going to even think about it. And you couldn't make it through the 10 commandments. So here I am. I'm going to give you just 2. Just concentrate on those 2. Honor and love your creator. Love your creator. And love each other as you love yourselves. Heck, we couldn't even manage to love ourselves. Okay? So we lost the standard right there. We were self-loathing and guilty and fear-mongering and going through all this other, self-created drama in our heads, so that we couldn't find that self enough in ourself, enough love of self to be able to love anybody else. So we even messed up all that. And then we looked around and we couldn't see the beautiful world that's around us. We couldn't see the miracle of creation. And so we couldn't know or love our creator either. So far it's mankind 0, devil 100%. And we have to try to come up through our own effort and say that, yeah, we are worth living. We deserve to live because we're making the effort. We might not be perfect. We might not make the grade, but we're going to try. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, guys, this is a serious problem for me. I don't want to spend my life doing 2 jobs and then having a 3rd job being foisted on me by assembly members who are not taking responsibility for their own actions and for the conditions in their own assembly. This is your assembly. It's up to you guys. You have to build whatever you're going to build, and it's up to you to build it.
There you go.
The international nature of States of the Union. We had a big flap this week because one of our international recording secretaries had the audacity to record.
Wait, what? What's wrong with that?
Oh, she lost at least temporarily her recording credentials over it. Apparently,
Wait, because she recorded? Wait, but that's what she's supposed to be doing.
Right.
Did I miss the memo?
What happened was that in a couple of states, there were people that were waiting a long time or having an untoward amount of difficulty getting in contact with the local coordinators and assemblies. And so they'd been waiting for months and months and months and months simply to make their declaration and get recorded. So, stumbling around, they went to a global family bank and found out that they could record through the bank. And so one of the international recorders that works for the bank helped them through their declaration process via the International Land Recording and Publishing System that Global offers. And then she let the local LROs know that these people had joined their, population of the state, so that the assembly could then do outreach and reach out to these new, Nebraskans or, the new people. They could reach out to the new people who had declared on the land and soil and, make a case for them joining the assembly and get them contact information for the assembly and all that. And that is precisely how it's supposed to work. When Global signs somebody up, they let the local LROs know that, there's a new member of your population, there's a new Nebraskan, there's a new Wyomingan, there's a new Idahoan, here's their contact information, here's your option to go out and make contact. And there was a big flap over it because apparently it still hasn't occurred to some people that we are all operating in international jurisdiction. The states of the Union are international states.
Right.
And the recorders of the LROs, all the state recorders, are in fact international recorders. So there's absolutely no difference between what the international recorder is doing and what the state recorder is doing, because the state recorder is an international recorder who has simply limited their activity to their state and keeping the state records. All right? So there's really no competition There's no controversy. There's no difference.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that there would be any kind of a brouhaha over that, unless they were like, recording someone across state lines. Like let's say one of our state assembly recording secretaries on California, helped did paperwork for a Missourian or something. They don't have stamps for Missouri, you see.
Well, no,
but
and the International Land Recording and Publishing System doesn't have stamps at all, except the bank stamp, right? But the function is exactly the same. There's the declaration, there's the witnesses, there's some proof of what you say you are, where you were born. And there you are. The basics have been covered. And you are now associated with the state. And if you stop and think about it, we really need these people because, okay, say that you're born in the District of Columbia. Well, then you have two parents that are Americans. One was born in Ohio and one was born in California. You, the baby, have to decide which of your parents' states you're going to adopt. Okay? And where are you going to go to get your recording done? You need an international recording secretary. How about if you're born to two Americans who are deployed in somewhere in the world as part of the armed forces or the diplomatic corps or any number of different foreign corporation operations? Say that your parents both work for Aramco and you were born in Saudi Arabia. Okay? You need that international recording secretary to, be able to sort through this and get you properly located in the birth date of one of your parents so that you don't lose out on your American birthright.
Right.
And, anybody who really sits and thinks about any of this knows that we need international recording secretaries who are not just limited to their state, okay? But at the same time, we need our international recording secretaries working for the state assemblies to have a comprehensive record for the state assembly. Okay, you have to have a record of your people, your population in that state. So again, it makes perfect sense that the state recorders, even though we call them state recorders, right?
Right.
Have international functions for the people within their state. And in case anybody missed out, we have an international business assembly. If we're not, if we're not functioning on an international basis, then why would we have an international business assembly? Okay? And now let's take another leap forward. Why is it important that we have state citizens who are ultimately committed to their state of the union sitting on that international business committee?
Well, they're the only ones withstanding to do that.
Right. And they're also the ones that set up the constitutions.
Mm-hmm.
So our state citizens who are operating in international jurisdiction and who created these international contracts known as the constitutions are also the only people who can enforce those constitutions because they're the only ones and who were ever party to those constitutions. They
the uppercase P people.
Right. They are the capital P people. Okay. We the people with a capital P. State citizen, capital S, capital C. People. Okay. This is an international function.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. We have these federal subcontractors. Even the American federal subcontractor was a space removed and in international jurisdiction. The federal republic was populated by a special brand of citizen that was delineated and defined in the very first immigration and naturalization law. Now, why would that be? And you read it, and it's a very orderly but fairly complex and long-term commitment on the part of the individual to undertake United States citizenship. They had to make numerous declarations over a period of time. They had to have excellent recommendation. They had to, they had to be people of good character. They had to be operating in good faith, and they had to make a choice that they were going to undertake the responsibilities of United States citizenship. Okay? So they were operating in a foreign capacity too. Okay? Mm-hmm. It was all international. And why is that? Because all the functions of the federal government, whether it's the American subcontractor, whether it's the British territorial subcontractor, or whether it's the Holy Roman Empire subcontractor, all federal functions operate in international or global jurisdiction. None of them operate at the national level of the counties. Okay?
That's right. Yeah.
All right, so the states of the Union are international. The Union states are national. And people constantly get confused between those two, but we as coordinators and as leaders and as Americans, we need to know the difference. We need to have two little maps in our mind. Okay, we've got the outline of our state, and it looks like a crazy quilt because it's got all these little boxes and pieces that are called counties. Yep. That are making up what? The Union state, the national soil jurisdiction, okay? And yeah, you are a member of a Union state. You're part of the population of the Union state because guess what? Every single American not only lives in a county, they live in a state. And just as well, they live in a state, so they live in a county too. Why is that? Because the only true, natural, unbreakable, and truly perpetual union is the union between the land and the soil. Other kinds of things can vary, other kinds of relationships. The sea can lap onto the land, or the land can overstand the sea, But when it comes down to it, the land and the soil are inextricably bound together. So you've got your map of your state, and it's separated into all these counties, and all those counties are joined together to fill up all the outline of your state, right? It's a crazy quilt that's shaped like Wisconsin. All right. Door County is sticking up there like the thumb of a mitten, right? But it's still Door County, and it's a county, and we represent, we have our crazy quilt, and we have our crazy state outline, but it's ours, and we're going to take it, right? Okay, so, and then right next to that, you've got an outline that's just the outline of Wisconsin. There are no county lines shown. It's just the outline of Wisconsin, and it's a topographical map. And that map shows, guess what?
The land.
Land. It shows mountains, it shows rivers, it shows valleys, it shows plains, it shows, tidal flats, it shows forests. All that is there, okay? And it's shaped just like that other state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are we beginning to understand?
Yeah.
Have those maps in your heads.
Yeah, and when you do that on your Granabite videos, where you broke this down and you showed those placemats and you explained, I mean, it's all on there too for people. There's a lot of visual learners, and seeing those visual aids really does help when you're explaining the difference between the land and the soil. And you know, the fact that you just mentioned it, the water can lap up onto, right, the land, it can lap up onto the soil, but there's no air jurisdiction between the land and the soil, and there's no water jurisdiction between the land and the soil. They're connected at all times. And you know, it's like the promised land, right? It's
Yes.
the promised land is in the Abrahamic covenant that, I mean, this is where the people live, right? The people are on the land and the soil, just as you're saying, the soil is
Right.
local. And
Right.
mhm.
And so it's important for people to understand that the states of the Union are international instrumentalities, okay?
Mhm.
And the Union states are national instrumentalities, okay? So anyway, there's absolutely nothing wrong with an international recorder publishing the declaration that a person who is actually naturally part of your population who just doesn't happen to be there at the moment or who couldn't get in contact with you. They should not be held back and delayed for months while they are struggling to find somebody who can and will help them get this declaration and publication done. I mean, realizing how important this is to our country and to us as individuals, that we have the correct political status on record. How would you like to sit around for months waiting for the local powers that be, the local recording secretaries, to get the lead out?
No, I wouldn't want to be waiting that long. It's like once you decide, getting to the point of being clear and certain that you want to take this leap of faith and do this.
Right.
It's like once you make that decision, I mean, you know, it's like getting engaged or something. It's like, all right, well, let's get on with it already.
Yeah, and you need to do it for your own protection, for your kids' protection.
Right.
You know? And so this is very important, that people be welcomed, that they get their recording services promptly. And if for whatever reason they need to go through an international recording secretary, well, then it shouldn't be any cause for concern or any big flap, because guess what, kids? We're all recording secretaries and we're all in international jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of settle that. And finally, from Colorado, God bless it, there's what I call a confusion at law. And, you know, I'm not going to, again, I'm not spotlighting Colorado because they're special and bad or anything like that. I'm spotlighting it because it came up from Colorado this week. And it reminded me again of the many confusions of law that we have, that people are struggling with so hard. And so there are people and there are persons, okay?
Yep.
Now, the American people have a standard of law, and that standard is American common law. It is now, and it has always been, American common law. We have our own brand of common law, and we, the living people of this country, are owed American common law. That's our law. That's what we're owed. But guess what? We owe it to ourselves. We have to provide our own courts. We have to learn our own law. And we have to apply our own law. And as I say, thank God, it's simple compared to federal law or state law or any form of statutory law that you can think of, okay? Our law is very simple. It asks one question: is there an injury? And it goes from there. Otherwise, we don't have thought crimes. We don't have infractions of rules. We don't have anything like that that hinders us or concerns us. There is only one question under American common law, and that is there an injury? And once we determine that there is an injury, somebody bats somebody else in the face with a wet haddock, and it caused a gash across their forehead and a scar, okay, there's an injury. All right. And if they are willing to come forward and claim that injury and want to prosecute for it, well, then they're entitled to. But if somebody bats them across the face with a wet haddock and it doesn't cause an injury, there is no gash and there is no scar, then we're not even going to consider it. We're going to say, oh, go soak your head. All right. That's how simple American law really is. It's just that cut and dried, that easy to deal with. All right. All these other forms of law are based on setting rules for what? Persons. Okay, who's a person? Well, let's begin. Public officials are persons. Public employees in a personnel system are persons. Civil servants in the federal civil service are persons. Citizens are persons. Corporations are persons. Corporate officers are persons. Okay, you got the idea?
Yep.
All
And
right.
when you say citizens, for the new folks, Anna's not talking about state citizens. She's talking about U.S. citizens or citizens of United States.
Right. Right. Well, state citizens technically are persons, but they're not under personal law.
Right.
Within their state. Okay, so they're sovereign of their state.
They're lawful persons.
Yes, we're lawful persons, and that's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But for your understanding right now, statutes, codes, regulations, ordinances, mandates, public policies, these are all legislated. So think of those as legislated law. Those are all things that pertain to persons operating in international and global jurisdiction.
Yeah, and legislated law, the first three letters, right? LEG, those are the first three letters regarding legal. So when you think of legislation, think of legalese, legal system, which is not the same as our lawful system.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, so anyway, people get confused because all our lives we've been hearing about federal code, this, that, the other, or state statute, 23.003.10, and all this stuff has been dumped on us.
Right.
Just like everything else has been dumped on us willy-nilly, and we just accept it as little kids growing up. But here's the facts. Those laws and statutes, those legislations pertain to what? Persons, not people.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two kinds of laws. There is the law, the actual law, right? And then there's the law, which is a kind of law, or actually several different kinds of law that pertain to all these persons, to our employees, to corporations, but not to us. And yet we have been indoctrinated to believe that all this legislation applies to us when it doesn't. And we have to be able to enunciate that clearly to our employees so they don't get the impression that we're just like them and are beholden to the statutory law and subject to their legislatures, because we're not.
We're not. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a wonderful, wonderful reference. Let me see, I had it here earlier today. It's so old, it's faded. The pencil has faded on this piece of note paper.
Oh, wow.
This is a piece of my note paper from like 1980, okay?
Oh, wow.
And you can see I tore it out of this ancient spiral-bound notebook, okay? But anyway, there's this wonderful reference on the subject of the law of persons. And here's just a wonderful little quote. The law of persons is the law of status or condition. And there's a whole section devoted to the law of persons, which very clearly delineates the law of persons as separate from the law of people.
Mm.
And the reference is American Law and Procedure, Volume 13, page 137, published in 1910.
Did you say page 137?
Yes, page 137, published in 1910. Goes into great detail and makes the clear distinction between law that is produced by a legislature for the requirements of persons and the law, which is our law, the law for people.
Well, that's an awesome resource. We're going to have to look for that one.
Yeah, if you find a full volume set, let me know. But that's volume 13, and that is key. That is very important. This is what preceded American jurisprudence. So this was the 1910 version, and it very clearly explains all that about personage and about personage being, the crime of impersonation and the difference between actual law and color of law, basically. And we've been living under color of law this entire time. Well, you can imagine the kind of cognitive dissonance that occurs when people are encountering this system, and all their lives they've been given the impression that federal code applies to them, when in fact federal code only applies to the British territorial government and its officials and minions. Okay? So here you are, you have federal code, all 50 titles of it, millions of pages, just, you've got everything from the infinitely bogus and overblown IRS code to the motor vehicle code to the military code of justice. You've got code upon code upon code upon code, right?
Right.
That's all just the British Territorial Corporation and its officers and its employees and subcontractors while they are working for said corporation, okay? And that is all set up in two forms, one of which is adopted by the municipal government as well. And there's this weird little junction point. The municipal government didn't adopt any of the federal code that the British territorials operate under, except for Title 50, which is the war powers. What they have is instead municipal code, right? Federal code was for the Brits, right? Originally, a federal code applied to the Federal Republic and the Brits. But anyway, today what we have is the federal code that the British territorials adopted. And then while the municipal government was operating, we had municipal code that was completely separate, except for Title 50, which they adopted. All right. Now, within all of that, we've got two forms of law. We've got maritime commerce, and we've got admiralty, and we've got commerce. Just plain old commerce, as we were discussing earlier, because commerce connects from the land to the air, and it can also connect from the sea to the air. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got these forms of law that are the laws of international law and global law, right? What does that have to do with us in our own backyard? Not a whole lot. People would be surprised how little of the federal code actually has any application for Americans. Only about 8% of federal code could possibly apply to an American. And all those instances that could possibly apply to an American are required to be published in the congressional record. Otherwise, they're published in the Federal Register. Okay? So again, you see the contrast between record and registry.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense. It's logical, you know. So the British territorial personnel that are functioning under Admiralty and Maritime Commerce have got this gigantic federal code, but only about 8% of it could possibly apply to an American. And here's the sticker. Not only do the parts that apply to the Americans have to be in the federal record, the American has to be doing something that is federally regulated.
Oh, like
Otherwise,
alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Right, right. A federally regulated activity. Now, what the federales try to do is say that anybody who's engaged in any kind of trade or commerce is engaged in interstate commerce. They use the Interstate Commerce Clause to try to spread a broad brush and entrap everybody under the Interstate Commerce Clause. But that doesn't work either, because they still have to prove that your activity is extending beyond your state borders. Right?
Right.
So, and what other kind of common things besides the sale, manufacture, or interstate transport of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, what other kinds of federal activities could we possibly engage in that would cause us to be subject to federal code, British territorial federal code? Well, let's see. We could be hunting in a federal game preserve. Okay. We could be
on a military base.
Right, on a military base, right?
Or a airport.
Right, you know, we could be at some kind of federally controlled installation of some sort. We could be at an arsenal. We could be at a mint. We could be at a post office. We could be at a dock that was a federal dock. You know, there are all sorts of places where situationally we could be in a federal enclave or on federal property. Okay, if we were in the District of Columbia, guess what? Anywhere in the District of Columbia, hey, then we're under their law and we have to, stand aside and make way for their federal code, right?
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, if you go to a U.S. possession, then you're dealing with the insular states and you're dealing with their laws because, the Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth country. Did you know that? We call it a U.S. territory, but in terms of its government, it's a Commonwealth nation. Okay, so then they have their own peculiar law. They also, in Puerto Rico, retained the Spanish law of the Inquisition. Puerto Rico was originally a Spanish island. It was owned by the Spanish before it was owned by the Brits. Okay, so even though it's in our territorial jurisdiction, it is functioning as a separate foreign nation, and it has its own separate foreign law. Okay, so there are all sorts of oddball little things that you might not be thinking of, but which nonetheless are true, that you are possibly in federal jurisdiction. If you come within a 12-mile diameter of a federal courthouse, 6 miles on either side, you may be in a federal enclave.
Whoa.
Now, that doesn't mean that they have the right to claim that. You can oppose that and you can contest that because all you have to do is ask, do they have a deed or a use permit or some sort of license or permission from the state assembly granting them control of that 12-mile circle? And the answer will be no. Okay. There are instances where the federales have a granted enclave. Okay. Early on, our states gave Washington, D.C. a provisional use permit to build the the federal capital on land belonging to Virginia and Maryland, for example. So there are instances where our states actually did grant the federales the use of a particular piece of land for their activities. The District of Columbia was set aside as a piece of land where the federal subcontractors could conduct their business and organize it. The whole district. They were also granted the city of Washington, D.C., in which to hold their congresses and conduct business. Now, what about the municipal government, which is going bye-bye, okay? Well, they came along and they created all these municipalities all over the world. And they organized under an international city-state known as the Municipality of Washington, D.C. The sticking point is that we never gave them permission to construct any such entity and operate any such entity on our state soil. So they were leasing from the British territorials, and the British territorials were leasing from Maryland and Virginia, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, it's like subcontractor of a subcontractor situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or as I say, fleas on a dog. They were kind of piggybacking along on the British territorial government's past. And so we now have all of these municipalities all over the country. and they're all broke. You know, the municipality of Detroit, broke, so deep underwater it'll never see daylight, okay? The municipality of Oakland, California, broke, so deep underwater they'll never see daylight. The municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, broke, so deep underwater they'll never see daylight, okay? I know because I just got the bill for $1.8 billion for the municipality of Anchorage. Isn't that interesting?
Wow. They sent you the bill?
Yes. Well, I'm the fiduciary, right?
Yeah.
I'm in receipt of their debt because it's my credit.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. And it's made out to Anna Maria Reisinger too. Harold got that one in and just about
bowled him over.
yeah.
Like he's going, Anna, wait, is this really what we signed up for? You know, like
Man, that birthday party you threw last summer must have been a doozy, you know. But anyway, yeah, all this stuff is coming home to roost on the municipal government because the municipal government was never supposed to be in our states to begin with. Okay, so they're not only broke, they're trespassing unless we take them over. And that's another whole story. But anyway, we have this great confusion of law because we had all these different entities that were operating on different forms of law, right? And so the maritime commerce was all being run under a particular form of Roman civil law that was created by the Scots. So we had Scottish Roman civil law, but that was the maritime commerce of the municipal government, okay? And, you know, today I got this thing where Colorado is confused. They're off here talking about Roman civil law and commerce, which no longer has anything to do with the price of beans in China anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then turning around and saying, oh, well, ex parte Milligan doesn't have anything to do with us, so it doesn't apply. But no, wait a minute, ex parte Milligan 2.us.us, you know, the federal code, which is 71U.S.2, does apply to our British territorial subcontractors who are still very much here and with us. Okay, so the importance of ex parte Milligan isn't for us to obey it, it's for our employees to obey it.
Yeah, they have to recognize that when we stake our claim on that ex parte Milligan, that we're declaring that our court is ready to hear cases and that they have to stand down. That decision still stands all the way back from 1866.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's also one of the clearest delineations of the limitations of claims of emergency or war. Okay? Section 98 says, therefore, anyone who declares the suspension of constitutionally guaranteed rights to freely travel, peacefully assemble, etc., earn a living, freely worship, or attempts to enforce such suspension within 50 independent, sovereign, continental United States of America is making war against our constitutions, and therefore we, the people. They violate their constitutional oath and thus immediately forfeit their office and authority, and their proclamations may be disregarded with impunity.
Nice. Now, wait, is that directly from ex parte Milligan?
Section 98 provides that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how much more clearly can you say, we don't care whether there's an emergency. You don't have the right to suspend our Constitution because why? Because we're the employers.
That's right.
You're the employees. And Ex parte Milligan, you're right, Ex parte Milligan is federal code and it does not apply to us, but it's still important because it applies to our federal employees.
Yeah.
And, getting our federal employees back in the box, getting them doing their job, observing their limitations, and not harassing us is a big goal. It's the difference between being able to go about your business and peacefully accomplish your life and the things that are important to you, and being thrown in jail by these brigands. So, as I said, American common law is our law. It's the law of the people. It's the law of our public, okay? And all the rest of this stuff is for personnel. It's for employees. But people have to realize this. They have to get it straight in their mind. What form of law applies to who?
Yep.
And to know that the municipal government is going away. We've all grown up with the alphabet soup agencies climbing all over everything and everyone all the time, 24/7. We've had the EPA, we've had OSHA, we've had FEMA, we've had BATF, we've had the IRS up our rumps since we were kids. We are so used to all these different, what seem to be abbreviations, but really aren't. DOL, DOT, all those things, those are going away. In fact, if you just keep your head up and look around, you'll notice that they're going away. You don't see it anymore. You don't hear it anymore. It's not coming out in government memos. You don't see things, State of Alaska, in all caps. Why is that? Because those are bankrupt organizations. They're bankrupt franchises. And in the same way, you're not going to see Municipality of Anchorage in all caps. You're not going to see Municipality of Oakland. You're not going to see the San Fernando Valley Borough. All these things that were associated with the municipal government and that were franchises of the United States, in all caps, corporation, are going away.
Well, I think it'll really hit home when we start seeing city councils have to fold, or you see in these municipalities, right? When they have to start, they're going to start having cutbacks and layoffs and whatever it is they're going to do as the bankruptcy trickles its way down to the local level.
Right.
And
right.
this whole thing, the fraud with the property taxes, that guy Mitchell Wexler, and one of the articles that you had on Paul Stramer highlighted this one gentleman that was talking about the property tax fraud and how the school districts are using this terminology called modernization to work with the tax assessors, and the property assessors, to just continue this fraud of, they just pull numbers out of their hat and just foist those numbers onto people and get those property taxes going up year after year after year after year, and causing, there's no accountability. There's no actual budget line items where those property taxes fund anything of, there are no services that get funded by those, but it's all a bunch of BS.
Okay, well, here's another goodie for you. People think that their income tax funds federal services. It doesn't. It never has. It is used as a pressure valve on inflation. They collect back all this money and take it out of the economy. And that's how they control inflation. It's completely arbitrary because remember, you're playing with monopoly money that doesn't really represent any specific value. It's just a symbol of value. And so they extract it out of your hide so that they can reduce inflation and keep the inflation from going into hyperdrive. And so that's the only reason that the income tax was ever of any importance. Now, if you go to a gold and silver backed economy or a mixed economy, that's no longer necessary because the fiat is not being inflated anymore. And you have a naturally inelastic monetary standard that is basically keeping everything in line. Okay, so, once people start using gold and silver again, the need for the federal income tax is gone. And that's why they can talk about doing away with the federal income tax, quite apart and aside from the fact that it was illegal from the beginning and was never ratified by our states of the Union. It's illegal as far as the federal workers themselves are concerned because it's a payroll kickback tax, and payroll kickback taxes are universally disallowed. So, the federal workers should never have been forced to pay it. And certainly no American should have ever had to pay any kind of federal income because we don't receive federal income. Unless you get a check from Uncle Sam that you didn't earn as a retirement check. Okay, military and Social Security checks are not federal income. They are pension benefits that were based on federal income. Big distinction, big difference. Okay. Now think about it. What if you were working for any big corporation and realize that what you think of as your government at the federal level is just a couple big foreign corporations in the business of providing government services? Okay, so say that you work for the post office and you retired from the post office and now you're getting a federal pension. So yes, you get a check from that corporation every month, but it's not income. You could go anywhere and adopt any kind of political status once you're retired. And think about it this way. Say that, again, say that you worked for Aramco as a petroleum engineer in Saudi Arabia for 30 years, and you decided to retire and move back to Boulder, Colorado, where you grew up. Okay? Is there any reason that you can't, as a retiree, move back to the States and, go back to your hometown? Hell no.
No.
Is there any reason that you can't adopt your political birthright status as an American and, give up any status as a U.S. capital C citizen or as a citizen of the United States? No. And are you still owed that pension payment from the corporation? Hell yes, you are free and clear, no problem, no question about it. In fact, the only thing that you really have to worry about is if that corporation goes bankrupt. In which case, your pension benefits will be very high on the list of things that the bankruptcy trustees have to honor. But yes, your pension is endangered when the corporation that you worked for goes bankrupt.
Wow, that is kind of scary for all those people that worked in the municipal, Babylonian system.
Yeah, right. Well,
with this bankruptcy, like what is going to happen to those people that banked their whole lives on that retirement or that pension,
well,
Yeah.
Because they constantly forward funded for 50 years, there's absolutely no reason for anybody to have any worries about not getting their pension out of the municipal government or its franchises or agencies, because they were grossly padding their expenses and charging you for them the whole time. Okay, so there's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And the federal pensions are way up there in the top 3 considerations that the trustees have to honor. So no problem for us, for our federal workers who are being laid off or who are taking early retirement, or there's no worry about that. I'm just saying that, as an example, if you were working for Aramco, which is a U.S. corporation, and it went bankrupt, and for some reason its liabilities exceeded its assets. Well, if its liabilities exceeded its assets, then nobody gets nothing out of anything, and everybody just gets stuck.
Yeah, and if their liabilities were over $36 trillion. Right?
Well, the oddball thing is that the numbers that they have as quote unquote national debt for their nations are trivial compared to the assets.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, when you count in our side of the ledger and when you balance the books, that's a trivial amount of money. The real clincher, the real problem, wasn't the federal government that Donald Trump represents, the British territorial government, even though the British territorial government is aligned with the British government, which is endlessly foul. Our real problem would come from the municipal government and its failure. The municipal government, well, as I say, they padded everything so far forward that nobody that's retiring now will ever have to worry about it. But the municipal government is a different beastie all the way through, and they are the ones that are right now in the process of liquidation and or merger. But what people don't realize is that it's worldwide.
Right.
They just don't understand the scope of that bankruptcy and what it's going to mean economically. A lot of these countries were being supported by the municipal government. You go to Burma, and the schools and hospitals and roads and sanitation facilities such as there are, all of that was being supported by the municipal government as basically a function of the Roman Catholic Church. So when you talk about bankrupting Burma in all capital letters, you're talking about a very significant unremunerated loss to the country in terms of money for infrastructure and basic services and things that really are needful. And so, what do we do about that? Yeah, this is a lot more complex than people are thinking about. And we really, as Americans, we're in the driver's seat. I know that's a frightening concept, but everyone wants to throw it off on Mr. Trump. Well, Mr. Trump already has his hands full. doing what he is delegated to do, okay, and what he's required by law to do. The rest of us have got to take more time and more consideration and think in a much bigger way. I mean, right now, people are having a hard time putting their mind around the fact that, oh, we're supposed to be telling our state government subcontractors what we want done, you know? So they're having a hard time wrapping their minds around things that are pretty simple and straightforward right here at home, right?
Right.
And they're not thinking about, oh, what happens when the municipal corporation of Burma goes bankrupt and all of these things that have been funded on our money as investments, okay, are suddenly defunded, and it leaves what, 100,000 people in Burma unemployed, and leaves all of their government organizations unfunded. You see, this is really a terrible thing that's happening, except that we have the funds to do something different and to be able to tide everything over if we'll be creative, if we'll think of our fellow man, if we will care about that situation in Burma or Bangladesh or any of the poorer countries. And really, we have such immense largesse that it doesn't hurt us to make these practical investments in these other countries and to give them a leg up. It doesn't hurt us at all. But we have to be organized. We have to be thinking in terms of, oh yeah, we should do something about that. Or we miss the opportunity and people starve and die from diseases, and there's complete and total chaos and disruption, which doesn't need to happen if we can be organized and think at a larger level. Because, we're not just part of a state, we're not just part of a country, we're part of a world. And of course, I see more of that than most people because of the work that I do, but we all need to think in terms of how this municipal bankruptcy is going to both free us, it will set us free, and it will stop the horrible drain on our resources. But then coming back from that, there are considerations that we need to make for other people all over the world who have been harmed, both by the corporations and now by the bankruptcy of these corporations.
Well, yeah, they tied us into this system. And so for multiple generations, it's all we've known. We've been in like this fishbowl of a reality, mostly this commercial system. And so there's a great emphasis on the money aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
It was getting awfully dark there. Yeah, and we've been talking for a long time. My voice is about ready to give out, but and I've talked a lot tonight. Tonight has been a teaching night more than a question answering night. So
we could have, if it's okay with everybody, we could have them email in their questions, and I could forward those over to you, Anna.
Okay, that would help, because as you can tell, my voice is.
I can hear it, yeah. And it was a great teaching night. Lots of great nuggets for everybody. So thank you so much, Anna. Really, really good. And, everybody, don't forget that Anna's generator went out. So on the TASA website, on that right-hand margin, you'll see all the different ways that if you've got a few shekels to send them off to Anna to help support with either getting that repair done or getting a new generator if that's what's necessary.
It's always something.
Right. Yeah.
You know, to quote the immortal Gilda Radner and Irma Bombeck and all Jewish grandmothers, always, it's always something.
It's always something.
You know, the dog is sick. The kid broke his arm falling out of the apple tree, you know. We lost an entire load of grapefruit. Something,
Yeah.
something always happens. In our case, it's usually something that's of the constructive nature. It's things like generators going out or electrical lines needing to be repaired or plumbing blowing up in the middle of February. You know, it's always something. But this year we had the plumbing blow up twice in 2 different facilities in the winter.
It's that water jurisdiction trying to grab a hold of you there, Anna.
Yes, yeah, you know, I was thinking there must be a whole coven of witches going, kill her septic tank, kill her septic tank. You know, blow that pipe, baby.
Yeah.
Up. You know, they must have been having themselves just an absolutely wonderful time at my expense, because I'll tell you what, we had more plumbing problems here in one winter than we have had in 30 years.
Oh, man.
Just everything you can think of. And that's so fun. It's so pleasant to have plumbing problems in winter anyway. But anyway, we have soldiered through bravely and with determination. And somehow, by the good graces of God and the fellowship of our friends throughout the United States and Europe, we have survived. Ha, ha.
That's right.
You know?
We're just getting started. This is the beginning in so many ways, right? So
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And, you know, we even have gotten through the first beta test. We're doing the second beta test, and then guess what? It's record time.
Woohoo!
So our dedication is paying off, and it's been a long, long, hard slog. Oof, I hate to think about it, but in what? Just a few days now, a couple of weeks, it'll officially be spring.
Nice. And that's when it's expected to really come to fruition, right? Right around there.
We're looking forward to a spring of joy and abundance and new relationships and a new understanding. We're looking forward to finally settling the hash of the British government, which is long overdue. And we're looking forward to 50 healthy, well-funded, hopefully well-educated and properly staffed state assemblies who are studying everything that we're teaching them in these coordinator training sessions, so that we'll have a whole bunch of coordinators ready to go out there and just, bam, we already got this one.
Awesome. It'll be, it's already a happy day, just being part of this amazing, amazing time in our history, and to be, you know, able to have you in our lives. And, you know, I'm not trying to fluff your feathers there, Anna, but the work that you've done all these years, decades now, has brought us to this point. So it'll be one awesome ticker tape parade when when that day finally happens. So
let me tell you, I've had many discussions with God about this.
Right. I'm sure you have.
And I have often heard the celestial laughter. Aha! We have Vladimir Putin in this corner, Donald Trump in that corner, Xi Jinping in that corner. And here, standing for the Americans, is Grandma. You know, it's ridiculous. But, you know, Who's to say? As it says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. It was certainly not my thought to be doing this at this point in my life. Okay, it was not my thought. So
Yeah.
somebody thought it. You can count on that. Anyway, it's almost 7 o'clock, guys. Love you all.
Yeah, it's been almost 3 hours for you, Anna. Thank you so much.
Have a great week. Go forward your questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everything tonight. I had quite a backlog of things I needed to discuss with the coordinator teams. So, good night, all.
God bless.
God bless.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
Good
you. Thank you,
night.
everyone, for
Thanks,
being here.
Michelle. Thanks, Anna. God
Thank you,
bless
Anna. Good night, everybody. Go forth and multiply, and we'll see you next week. And for those of you that have your hand up, go ahead and send me the question, and I'll compile them all into one thing and send them off to Anna in one email. Thank you, everybody. God bless you.
Good night.
Michelle.
Night.
Hey, Michelle, it's Joshua, real quick.
Oh, wait, who's that?
It's Joshua in Mississippi. How you doing?
Hey there, Joshua. Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Can you throw me on your email list that you're sending out? I haven't gotten the last.
You're not on it?
No, I haven't gotten the last several. I did send you an email to get you to update it.
I remember you doing that. Hold on. Let me make sure.
Okay. Anyways, I yield. Thanks, Michelle. Peace. Good job. We all appreciate it.
Thank
Michelle?
you.
Good job, Michelle. Thank you.
Hey, hi, John Farinacci. I know that voice anywhere.
Michelle?
Okay. Yep. Go ahead. Who's
Okay.
that? Rome?
It's Riley from South Africa.
Hey, Riley.
Can you also, I put my email in the chat. Can you also send me notifications for the coordinators training for you guys, so I can just keep up to date, because there is a lot of information that I also need from, to assist my assembly and the coordinator in South Africa. On that, I yield.
No problem. I'm going to add you to my contacts right now, and then I'll do it. And it's South Africa.
Yeah, it's we also got a lot of hard work to go. There's a lot of research still need to be done, and the biggest problem for us is sitting with absolute ignorance, willful ignorance, Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, and people just don't want to believe. And even if you show them the evidence, of, hey, listen, we've been taken for a fool, and people that we believe that we trusted for so many decades have actually misled us. And and to get them to stop and think, it's been a battle and a half. And on that, I yield.
I totally know what you're talking about. Waking up is hard to do. It's not always easy, but we're getting there. We just have to keep at it. Just judging by the number of people that attend this call, that alone is evidence that, things are happening. So we just have to keep it up. I mean, imagine how long Anna has been at this, and I can't imagine her ever giving up, but there must have been times where she was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Okay, first of all, this is what I look like for those who don't know. So this is what I look like. I concur with you. I mean, she's doing it for more than 40 years. We're only doing it now. Okay, we started with the COVID pandemic in 2020. Okay. And then I saw things were wrong. And then we are now basically only doing research now from, say, 2022, 2023. And we have people giving up. And they don't realize that in order to do any forms of due process of laws procedures, you need to know what's in your house. And if you don't know how your house is running or what's in your house, then the people get frustrated because it's, but we just have to do X, Y, and Z. No. Anna made it clear that if you don't do this thing right, you're going to get a hiding. Okay? We already got a situation now. Apparently, 4 of our guys who went to the DC are going to be charged with treason. What they don't realize is they can be charged with treason because they operate as employees of a private profit business.
That's right.
Nobody's comprehending that there's one word or person, the definition. We have the Interpretation Act that says what it is, and that is what my frustration part is. We told you, you need to look at the acts. You got to look at the definitions. You got to use a legal dictionary. You can't use a standard school dictionary. And it's just, it's stuck. And it frustrates the crap out of me. I yield.
Well, hang in there. You know, this, as we pretty much are all learning, this is not a walk for wimps. So hang in there. You're not a wimp. You got this. And you're walking among others in other words, you're not alone. We got this.
Yes, I concur with you. Now, look, I'm doing this long term. I've got 2 kids. And this is where I got a problem with, and especially with the COVID and that. I'm saying to you, you people allow these people to poison your children. When do you draw the line? When does your children's future actually become relevant in you standing up and saying something is wrong? Somebody tried to take my kids, somebody tried to poison or did poison my kids and poisoned me at the same time. So when do I start actually saying there's something wrong? And that's the frustrating part, because I cannot let it go. As much as my wife and I fight every day about this, because it's even created conflict within my own family. You understand? And they're saying, yeah, but it's over now. No, it's not over. It's over when we know that we can protect our children, educate our children, and make sure that that does not happen to them as what has happened to us and our predecessors, including our families. I yield.
Well, and you know, I know you're not asking for unsolicited advice here, but you don't let it destroy your family. You know, that's exactly what the enemies, the evil of the world would love to have happen, is the destruction of our families and getting, strong men out of the homes, so keeping that leader that you are for your family there, Riley, and, love your wife. Don't let it destroy your marriage or your family. It's so important to stay together and work it out.
Yeah, but the thing is it's very difficult. And I just saw a message now, somebody mentioning about the issue. The biggest problem is this whole attack from the New World Order, Cabal Deep State, was to influence and destroy families. Whether it's your husband or wife scenario. I had conflict with my mother. I told her not to take the vax. She went to take all 4. Now, here's the rationale. Did you trust the doctor and the government over me that's been your son or your husband? I'm the ones doing the research, and I'm saying, hey, there's something wrong here. So they've really gone hard on us and destroying the family structure to the point where I'm in conflict with you because, but the government said, but I'm saying I'm your husband and I've built a relationship up with you for the last 20 years. How come you don't trust me? And that's speaking from truth. That's speaking from the heart, and that's where the despondent comes in. But at the end of the day is that whatever happens in my future, I did do something and nobody can ever point fingers at me.
That's right.
I yield.
That's right. Well, and, just try not to take it personally because, all of us have been indoctrinated into this very demonic, horrible, horrible system, but not knowing that that's what was going on, And so being able to relate to a time in life when you were asleep, it's like you woke up and now you're like taking action and you're ready to rock and roll. And not everybody is able to embrace it as quickly, and so for your family, especially if you have children, in the Bible, it teaches us, right, that in the home, the man of the house is the leader of the home, and but you're a team. You and your wife are a team, and as you lead by example, what's going to happen for your children. So being that leader of your household is also being able to have that sort of compassion and show your family that you're there to protect them, just like you're doing, but doing it in a way where if you're getting resistance, it's mostly because of confusion. They might have concerns for where you're learning this. How do you know it's correct? So maybe listening from a place of they have concern about whether or not you're actually right. They don't want you ending up in jail. All kinds of things might be going on where they're afraid. So the questions might be coming from a place of fear for the loss of what you've provided for your family. You have a home, you have groceries on the table, you have, whatever it is that you have, and they don't want you to go away. They don't want you locked up behind bars or drug away by, you know, the men in black, right? So,
yeah.
Anyway, I know that I don't know where this is all coming from, other than, you know, having been divorced myself. I know the value now of making your relationship a priority so that it doesn't break apart your whole family, because it affects your children, it affects your brothers and sisters, your parents, your other people that love you, you know, when there's trouble in the home. So just hang in there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You got
But
it.
you guys also keep going as well. You have support internationally. Let me say this to you, because I am on our next meetings in any case every Wednesday. We are all waking up. So it's like you say, it's just being consistent, being committed. And like I said, I am committed. I have to be committed, whether I like it or not. Because one thing I told everybody, including my wife, you stop being a parent the day you die. Okay, you don't stop when they turn 21 or 24 or 25. You stop being a parent the day you die. And if you are a reasonable thinking parent, okay, I know you can't really use the word because it's got connotation, then you would always be concerned about your kids. And if something's wrong, you inform them. Okay, although I've learned you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink it. But they can never turn around and say, but why didn't you make me aware of it? And all that I yield.
Right. That's true. We do have an obligation to speak about it. And you're right. You can't make them drink. That's for sure. They're on their own journey when it comes to that. So, but we can keep asking them, you know, or keep educating. Yeah.
Right. I concur with that one. But thanks for talking and thanks for presenting.
Sure.
Because I do 2 meetings. I do Monday, and then I do your one. I do the litigation in this morning, and then I do your ones afterwards. So yeah, it's also been emotional and tied as a roller coaster ride for me, because our time difference is a bit of a problem. But that's fine, because there's a lot of things I can learn and I need to learn so that I can educate the guys on the committee. But again, thank you, and may you all have a pleasant evening, I remember correctly.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And God bless you and your family.
Same to you as well.
And I'll get you on the email. I'm just grabbing all these emails that I'm seeing in the chat. So I'll be sending out the playback tonight to, you know, of this recording, and I'll also get it up on the Rumble channel for the public facing link. And awesome, everybody. Okay, well,
magic.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and take care, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We'll see you next week.
Cool. Ciao.
Ciao. Bye, everybody.
Take care.
I love everybody.
I just put my email in the chat to Michelle, please.
Oh, there's another one. Okay, bear with me. I thought I got them all.
I snuck it in.
Bear with me 1 second. Oh, and Jill. I didn't have Jill's. Okay. Oh, is that okay? Wait, was that Jocelyn that just said that?
No, that was Sarah.
Oh, then I have 2.
But I did put my email just in case you didn't have it on there, because I don't think I've been getting any emails. So I just put it back in there. That's Jocelyn.
Okay. Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, I will.
Me too, Michelle.
Thank you, Karen. Okay. All right. Sorry about the dead air here, everybody, while I'm copying and pasting. Okay, that's Sarah on Australia. Wow, what time is it in Australia right now?
Oh, no, it's really good. It's like 3:15 in the afternoon.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. Okay.
Thanks, Michelle.
Oh, you got it. Thank you.
So she's talking from the future right now.
Right. Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, for us, it's still March 6th, but for you, it's March 7th, huh?
Oh, well, March the 7th was a nice day, so enjoy.
Oh, wait, for you, is it March 8th?
No, aren't you on the 6th? Yeah, we're the 7th.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, we're still on the 6th. All right. Okay, Sarah on Australia. I think I just have one more. Oh, no. Jocelyn and then Karen. I gotta find Karen's. Oh, I see a hand up. Is it Manuel or Manuel? How do you like to say your name?
It's Manuel.
Okay, Manuel, what's up?
I had emailed you. You responded. I just want to say thank you for responding on that part. I had watched your videos. I just couldn't find it again. Who am I supposed to notify with my paperwork, or do I not need to worry about that anymore?
No, yeah, you do need to get it done. So you need to notify the Secretary of State on the state where you live, as well as the state where you were born, if it's different than where you live now.
It's not.
Okay, so if it's the same, then yeah, Secretary of State. And then you also need to notify the U.S. Secretary of State. So that would be Marco Rubio in Washington, D.C. You need to notify for international, like if you're going to be traveling internationally, you also need to notify the Bureau of Consular Affairs. They happen to have they're in the same building as Marco Rubio in Washington, D.C. You could also notify your state trustees.
I wouldn't know how to find them.
Okay. Bear with me 1 second because I'm right in the middle of copying and pasting Karen's email address into the.
Yeah, take your time. I was waiting on you.
Okay, super. Yeah, I do have a U.S. trustees link for you. It'll just take me. I think because I'm on Zoom right now, it's just making everything a little slower, but I'm almost there. Okay, now let me get the trustees.
Yeah, the email I sent you was about that Eugene's use of drug derivative.
Oh, right. Did you end up hooking up with Doug?
No, but I ended up doing it again to a different court in the neighbor county. But this time I carbon copied the judicial conduct, and then since I had an email from my local court clerk, I carbon copied them on email, so that maybe something will happen. I don't know.
I've only seen a tiny bit. I'm not totally familiar with that whole training,
Did you get the video? Did you get the link I sent you?
I did. Well, actually, I got it from Doug originally, but I have not watched it.
Yeah, it's 42 minutes long.
Oh, that's not too bad.
And if you put it on 1.25, he doesn't talk real fast for me get go. It goes by really quick.
Okay. All right. I put the link in the chat to the U.S. trustees, regions, and offices. So what you're going to want to do is, and you're on California. Oh, I'm sorry. You're on Kansas. So
Kansas.
You're going to go to the link that I sent you. You're going to find Kansas. You're going to find your regional trustee, their name and address.
So the regional office?
Uh-huh. And then you're going to not only send it to the regional trustee, but then you're going to send it to the U.S. trustee in Washington, D.C. And then you're also going to send it to the criminal trustee in Chicago, Illinois. And so from that link, you'll be able to find the appropriate names and addresses for each of those.
Okay, you said regional office,
Mm-hmm.
and then you said U.S. trustee of what?
In Washington, D.C.
And then, okay, I was in Washington.
And then the criminal trustee
in Illinois.
In Illinois, Chicago. Mm-hmm. And all you need to send them is okay, so if you did your 1779, you can also do your what's called a declaration of political status. That's the one
I
that
have
gets
all that.
embossed.
I got the whole 928s done. It took me 2 years to go through all the 928s to at least get an understanding of it before I did my paperwork.
Okay, good.
Because I was scared. That was a lot, and I didn't want to get myself in trouble.
It is a lot. Well, it's a huge, bold step. It is a bold step to do status correction, and especially in an environment like what Riley was talking about earlier, where there's no agreement. There isn't much agreement out in the world for what we're doing, at least yet. But it reminds me, if I could offer up a little bit of hope, okay, for almost 10 years of my life, I was a, quote, political activist in the health freedom space. So I was advocating for parental rights and for people to be able to opt out of vaccines and teaching people about exemptions and explaining about injuries and all the stuff, right? And at that time, it was, talk about tinfoil hat. I mean, I literally had someone spit in my face at the state capitol building one time. It was disgusting. Well, anyway, all I could do was pray for that ridiculous. There was a man and a woman next to each other, and they were mocking as we were, protesting, frankly. But anyway, now fast forward, right? And there's so much happening at HHS. And one of our greatest heroes in the health freedom movement at the time was, Robert Kennedy Jr., and now he's leading HHS. So although that's the wrong jurisdiction, if you would have asked me even 5 years ago, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, it would almost be impossible to get help in Washington, D.C. for what we're doing. And now it's not that way. Now there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of momentum, and, and that wasn't that long ago. So if we just keep at it one step at a time, one conversation at a time, it's going to happen.
I feel the more I learn, the easier it is.
Right? Yeah. Education.
Like when the judge, it was funny. So like when the judge started yelling at me, I'm going to prosecute you under statutory law. And I just felt this calming over me. And I was like, wait a minute, I haven't even been indicted. You can't do that.
Right.
And then I told him, I said, I reject your statutory law. I want nothing to do with it. I'm not your employee. Or are you saying I'm your employee? And I shut him up again. It was so great. That
Nice.
was with the usufruct derivative. And so I did that. And so that's why I was like, I was wondering if it didn't work because I didn't do the proper notices to the U.S. trustees and the Secretary of State and all these that I just asked you about, or you told me about. But I did it again with Hamilton County next door. And then I'm also struggling with my kids because my youngest is 21, but they're in Colorado. So they're in the neighbor state, and I don't know what's going on over there. I keep trying to tell them, but the kids are stubborn sometimes, and you love them to death. But like you guys were saying earlier, like you can tell them all you want, but unless they want to learn, they're not going to learn.
Yeah.
But I'm getting closer.
I found that if you can get people to a place of curiosity, and everybody's different, right? Some things really create curiosity, and other, depending on the person that you're talking to. But if you can get them to a place where they're at least asking you questions,
it's better if they can ask me questions that I can answer, because
right,
there's a lot of people ask me questions that I don't know how to answer yet.
Yeah, well, and that's okay. That's okay. There have been times, and you might, if you have this kind of a relationship with your coordinator or your state assembly recording secretary or someone that's, a little further along, that's local. I mean, I've had people
they're not further along. And they give me well, why don't you just figure it out and then tell us how to do it? I was like, I try to tell them, I said, look, I'm trying to work together with you guys so we can all learn together at the same time, and we can, pick up where somebody misses something, and we can grow together that way. And if for some reason there's a couple of them that are kind of like the leaders that everybody looks up to, and so I'm just trying to do it on my own. I mean, because it's easier to do that than to fight with them all the time.
Right. Yeah. No need to fight. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we're leaving that fighting system behind. What we're here to do is be a stand for peaceful and lawful assembly. And so we get to practice demonstrating that being peaceful, and it's not always easy.
How important do you feel the Constitution is?
Well, listen, the Constitution is very important because it's the employment contract for our federal employees. We have 3 different jurisdictional contracts. And of course, our federal republic, our American subcontractor, is non-existent at this time. So we really only have 2 to enforce, the municipal United States Constitution. And
the reason I was asking is so I found this video. It's done by Carl Miller. He's already died.
Oh, Carl Miller is awesome.
But he let the 5-hour and 11-minute video.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yep.
And I've watched it 11 times. That's how I got through the judge. Like I felt like I got railroaded, but everybody was like, "Oh my God, you did so good. That was awesome." And it was the judge's secretary that was telling me this. So
yeah. Carl Miller
I recommend
is a legend, because here's the thing though, he, as legendary as he is, I consider him a mentor. I watched all of his videos. He's incredibly versed in the courtroom, and he was teaching at a time before status correction was even a thing. He was teaching at a time before we were assembling, before we were even summoned to assemble. So his knowledge, although incredibly important because people are still being dragged into court, it's going to go the way of the dodo bird as our assemblies stand up and get fully seated and have functional, operational, lawful courts and our juries, and we start relying on our actual people courts again. That information that he's taught won't necessarily be applicable to us because we're not of that jurisdiction anymore, and we shouldn't be. But he was.
I'm not so sure, because he does straight up cover the doctrine of latches, which is what they jump onto. It's like their holy grail on how they screw people.
Yeah.
And he explains that one really well.
It's all trickery to get you to contract with them, even if it's just through a tacit agreement.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he does so well, I think, and his covering of the American jurisprudence on what the judges are supposed to do. They're supposed to judge everything in our favor. They're supposed to construe the trust in our favor, and if you let them know that you know that, then it makes it easier for them to do the right thing.
Well, eventually, and of course this isn't now because we're not quite there yet, but eventually it'll be totally distinct. It'll be evident that there's a court for corporate, the incorporated system and the employees that are part of it. And then there's going to be our American common law courts, which ultimately are going to be county courts and state courts, because that's where the county courts are where living people have court, at least in our system. And
right, but they're still going to be there for, you know, for the commercial stuff, right? Because I mean, they got the knowledge in that, even though they're not going to be able to jump on latches anymore. They're going to need something to do still.
The commercial system isn't going away, but we're not going to be subject to it unless we're we're not going to be subject to it unless we do so voluntarily. So when your status corrected, which is just the first, you know, it's the first step in this whole thing, because only status corrected people could assemble. And right now it's all kind of blurry because we're still assembling. But at some point in the future, you're not going to be, you know, that's not going to be your court. It's not your court now. The problem is, though, you don't have a court to, you know, bring a harm to, you know, unless Kansas stands up their courts, state and county. But, you know, imagine, but you have to be able to imagine and see that there's a jurisdictional distinction. Those courts do not belong to you anymore, period. You see?
And I think they know this.
I
think they're waiting for us to do something. And I think when they invited me to court, even though I had already put in my use-fric derivative, but then it did kind of get lost. But anyway, I think that he was just testing me. He was wanting to see what the people who are going to be, or who are the bosses, what they're going to be like, because they're picking on Terry now. They pulled him over, and so it's just me and Terry that are papered up here in Garden City, Kansas. And so, and he's friends with some ex-cops related to an ex-sheriff. And they pulled him over, and they're like, "We don't care. We're not going to argue this here. This is something you got to deal with the judge." And it's just a ticket, but I think they want to test us. They want to see who we are. They want to know if they can respect us as being the bosses. Does that sound weird?
No, that's exactly what's going on. They've all been noticed. They know that we're assembling, and they know that we're sort of in this weird in between where not every state has stood up, like Ohio, right? So they know where we're going, and they're just kind of putting their feelers out to figure out where exactly are we in this process. So we still, you know, so it's sort of like Florida's doing a great job, Arizona's doing a great job, California was doing a great job and kind of took a few steps backwards, but it's happening. And the more, you know, you've been studying, so so
I've been studying since 1995.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of street credibility under your belt there, and so a lot of people are still on their studying journey. And tonight, you know, when Anna talked about, you know, the treaties and the different jurisdictions, and then later the constitutions came, and she filled in that little missing link. It's like the missing link of
So what I was thinking,
authority of, you know, of doing all this come from, creating a federal government, et cetera. You know, these contracts. So
right. So I was thinking about, well, they got those treaties. Now that we got our assemblies up, and our assemblies are actually what we need to do the redress of grievances under the Constitution. And so now we got our assembly up. So now we can do the formal complaints to tell them what we want. But I don't know who we're supposed to actually give that to. If it's the Attorney General, Secretary of State, Governor, I'm not sure who.
Okay, well, hold on a minute. Because you're not a subject under the Constitution. You're not under the Constitutions. You're an enforcer of the Constitutions, right? So redress of grievances ultimately applies to those that are subjects of the Constitutions, which are federal subjects.
Well, it's those who are violating the Constitution, I thought. So that would be our government personnel.
Okay, right. But let's just play this out. Okay.
I'm listening.
The redress of grievances, people who are stuck under a contract, if they have a grievance to their superiors, okay, they have a right to a redress of their grievances. We've been taught that we're underneath these constitutions and that the constitutions apply to us because we were taught that we are federal citizens. Okay, so, but when you're status corrected, it doesn't work that way. You don't go to your employee and submit a grievance. You fire your employee. Do you see? So
okay, so it's like, for instance, the state taxes.
Correct.
That's a grievance, and so it's not. Well, it is directly to me because there's even though I did my W-8 BEN, they honored it 1 year, and then this last year they decided to take taxes out anyway. I figured I'll get it back later. That's not a fight I want right now. And then this other thing came up, and I did the court thing in 2 different courts, 2 different counties.
Okay.
And because I've learned a lot more now. Like I told you, I started studying in 95, but things didn't start making sense and separated into the right departments until like 6 years ago.
Correct. I totally am with you on that.
But
Yes.
at the same time, I ate up everything. And I got everything confused for the longest time. But because I remembered all these things, even though all my notes and books and everything got lost in the divorce thing, they all make sense. And it's a lot easier for me because I got the background, at least, even though it was a confused background, I still got the background on the definition of the words and different things like that.
Well, as long as you know you're not going to seek a redress of grievances due to state of state income taxes, right? Because number one, you don't earn income unless you're a state employee or a federal employee or
so this was that was just an example of something I can do for my fellow people. Like, so I want to be able to, like, I don't know, say, I want to change the police department. They need to change, either go to becoming peacekeepers, or they need to go back to the District of Columbia in their little 10 square area.
Right. Well, yeah, you aren't going to do that. Your assembly is going to do that.
That's what I'm saying, though. So now that we got an assembly, now that we can redress those grievances.
No, but it's not a redress of grievances. A redress.
You don't feel that's a grievance?
No. That's not what I'm saying.
That they're operating outside of their jurisdiction?
They are operating outside of their jurisdiction. But what I'm telling you is a redress of grievances isn't the tactic. That's not the thing. A redress of grievances is when an inferior goes to a superior and they're doing this thing with these grievances. You are no longer inferior. So it's just a semantic thing. You're not redressing your grievances. You're assuming your rightful place on your state as you're either a state national or if you've got a certain state citizen position or you're in the capacity of a state citizen, you are not under them. Does that make sense?
I understand that.
Okay, yeah. So redress of grievances is for the. I just thought it was subjects, and you're not a subject anymore.
Okay,
yeah.
So we so just since you're still talking to me, our assembly, how would we address something like that to apply to our state then, to our employees? How would we address them?
Okay, well, first you need to stand up your state. So Kansas needs to go through all that it takes to hold a proper election, have all the seats filled, do the appropriate setting up of your courts, your international business assembly, your militia. You've got to do all the things.
I don't think we're close to that.
Right, which is totally fine. Okay, this isn't a race. It's quality is better than speed. Okay, so it would be the point of knowing that the employer of these agencies is ultimately it is going to lead back to your assembly. It's not that way right now because your assembly isn't organized around this. You don't have the enforcement power. Most states don't have the enforcement power. But you will get to that point later as everyone on your assembly gets learning and knowledgeable. But as far as I know, nobody is like on the attack, attacking the employees at this time. It wouldn't be advisable to do that other than putting them on notice. We could use Anna as a prime example. She puts out international notices all the time. And that's a peaceful and lawful thing to do. Get things on the public record, get them out to the appropriate agencies that ultimately are required to be put on notice. And then it's this systematic approach of peaceful and lawful behavior. So for you, I would focus on working with your fellow state nationals and state citizens on your state to get all of the positions filled and, have a robust education committee and work together as a team to get yourselves educated in such a way that you will eventually have enforcement power. And that should be your sole focus.
We're working on that right now. So we got 105 counties.
Oh,
and we're wanting to do kind of a 3-county thing instead, because we have so little people and such big I want to say almost vacant areas.
Well, but you want to look at so you're on Kansas. You're going to want to look, I don't know what year Kansas became a state of the union. So
1863.
During the Civil War. Okay, so
during the Louisiana Purchase, wasn't it?
I thought that was a little earlier. Wasn't the Louisiana Purchase like 1802 or something like that?
It might have been
1820.
I do know. I did find it. So Finney County, where I'm at now, was smaller, and it was Sequoia County.
Okay.
As far as the land jurisdiction went, and I had to go to the railroad maps to find it. And then I knew what to look up. But so I guess it was only Sequoia for 3 years, but the land jurisdiction was never occupied. So then they went to the Finney County, which was the sea jurisdiction, the British territorial, and then they did an L shape instead of the regular square that the Sequoia was.
Okay, so the year. Okay, so if it's possible for you to find records of Kansas before US, right? So California, we had to go through this back. We went through it in 2020.
Right, because you guys were Mexico too, huh?
We were Mexico, correct.
So were we, this area.
So yeah, we ended up learning that I think it was 1849 or 1850 US, there was a General Riley, and General Riley was a US general, I think it was Army, and he was the summoning authority, but he didn't actually have the lawful summoning authority to do that because there was not a land jurisdiction assembly at that time. So California went to the original 27 counties before that happened. California already had a bunch of counties when this was Mexican territory. So
and see, Kansas, they took the Pawnee, the Cheyenne, Chickasaw. They vacated those Indians to take over this land.
I see.
And they moved them down to Oklahoma.
Ugh. It's such a bummer.
Yeah. A lot of crazy stuff.
So did they have a county system at that time, or was it just based on the nations? They had the Chippewa Nation and the Shawnee you just said.
Yeah, the maps, that's what they show. I don't actually know. I can't actually find anything on it.
Mm.
That's something that they're trying to hide.
Interesting.
I know they're somewhere, but I can't find them.
Yeah, well, that's where you want to go back. You want to go back to find the original Constitution for Kansas, and you'll want to find out who was the summoning authority. You want to find out, just get that early history, and you might have to do a little bit of digging. There was a whole contingent of people on California that went up to the archives. I want to say it was in like Sonoma County or something like that. But they went up there and they went through the archives and they found all this old stuff, took pictures, came back with a bunch of information.
Yeah, I think our Indian archives are actually in Hutchinson.
Okay.
In an underground facility.
Wow.
I remember watching a video on that.
Yeah.
But I haven't had a chance. Things have been crazy.
I know
busy.
There's so much research to do, but and there might be people on your assembly that have done some of that work. You guys could work together to tag team and take on some reading assignments and getting to the nitty-gritty of the very beginning. Because
I think we're getting more people.
Good.
And I think they're all working by themselves in littler groups, which is a good thing, I think. And then when everybody's ready, we'll all come together, and
yeah, that's
I think
great.
we'll be super ready.
And Loretta from Missouri put in the chat just now, she said, have you tried the BLM and look under surveys? That's where I found the Missouri State Survey. Try contacting the Kansas City BLM office. They have a research place. And of course, BLM is not Black Lives Matter in this case, it's Bureau of Land Management. Okay. Prior to a BLM, it was called the General Land Office, the GLO. And so when you if you hit a brick wall with the Bureau of Land Management, the older documents would be under the GLO, General Land Office.
Yeah, I tried to look up stuff on the BLM before, and I tried all kinds of different things, and I found some weird things. I just kind of like did my last name, and I think in Wisconsin there was a land grant for Nancy Banda. I don't know if we're related or not. There's too many bandas.
You never know. You never know. Well, do you have any other questions? We have one other hand up, and then I would. What was that?
I yield.
Okay, you had
Thank you so much.
Questions. Thank you so much. Great conversation there. Thank you.
Have a great night. Too.
Okay, you too. Okay, Michael Bearwald, you're the last question of the night, or comment, whatever you've got. Oh no, where'd you go? Did I lose you? I guess we lost him. Well, how about that? All right, everybody. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up unless he hops back on. Great call tonight. Anna gave us a lot of great information. So this is going to be one of those ones where you may want to listen to the playback and take some detailed notes. And thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It is amazing to get to be with you as we work on this incredible project. But as always, go forth and multiply, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Al. You're welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Yes. And especially you East Coasters and you people around the world. Thank you for being here tonight.
You have a good evening. A good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Sorry, I'm the interrupting elephant tonight. I'm so sorry. Okay. Bye, everybody.